And that means it's bug season. Heck, who am I kidding? It's always bug season in Texas. And that's why you need Grandeur Pest Solutions in your corner. They're locally owned and operated. They're trained, they're trustworthy, and they have a proven record as they have been in business for almost 10 years. They provide pest control against ants, bed bugs, bees, roaches, fleas, wasps, mosquitoes, rodents, spiders. If it crawls and you don't like it, they're probably going to take care of it for you. Now, they serve all of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and they're locally owned. These two guys have been running this business since 2013, and every year they get bigger and bigger. But you know what they still do? They still have great customer service. In fact, if you get a hold of them, they're usually going to have your quote and your job ready to go within 48 hours. That's pretty good. Now, you can call them for a free estimate at 469-809-1769. You can find them online at Grandeur4, that's the number 4, shore.com. You can also find them on Facebook. Just type in Grandeur Pet Solutions, and we are so happy that they're title sponsor for OutDrank the Coverage in 2023. We talk high school football, 4A, 3A, and 2A in Texas. We talk East Texas sports. We talk NFL, guy talk, movie, and booze. We also talk wrestling and so much more. So like and subscribe and check us out.
Here we go! Buck, here we go! 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 Here we go!
It's
here we go!
old time happy hour. So pick up the step and smile wide.
Smile wide, Noe. No, smile wide so I can see you. Oh, first one of the day. Hey, everybody. Terry Bennett.
First of many, probably.
First of many, probably. By the way, I noticed it's no longer intern Noe the Pro, or we have now said, hey, we're our Noe the Pro. We're going with that.
Oh, I forgot to change the name. I think I can do it on here.
I kind of like the name intern Noe the Pro, not question mark, just intern Noe the Pro, just to confuse everybody. By the way, this is OutDrank the Coverage, our special. I feel like every other happy hour has been special because we thought of this, rightfully so, as in every other Monday. But then with the baseball show that we're helping with Ryan, Texas 2 Scene, check that out. New episode is up at our YouTube at L4 Media. But he's kind of doing an every other week live show to kind of drum up interest, and we're doing an every other week. And then we've got like NFL draft. Well, yeah, that happened. And then, NFL schedule and all. So once again, we're here on our 9th happy hour. And these have been actually really, really fun.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be tiring to do them once every other week, but now I kind of want to do them every week, which is kind of what we have been doing.
And that's what we'll end up doing for the pro season or NFL season anyway.
Yeah. So every Monday night we will, I think, start at 6 p.m. or 6:30. I can't remember. Let's
do 6. Yeah. I like 6 because I have to. So for those that don't know, of course, I do a ton of other shows. We're going to be doing a ton of shows with OutDrank the Coverage, but I also do a ton of high school shows. And Tuesday morning is kind of when that starts. So that's one of the reasons we started the 6 o'clock now. But because we're going to go to that there because it is nice to be done around 8 most nights instead of 9:30.
Yeah, you and I are both morning people, so yes. It also kind of works out in that regard. But people are also tuned in, ready for, especially in the fall, they're ready for Monday Night Football, getting all the pregame information they can absorb. We're just going to use this happy hour to talk about the week in football, what happened on Sunday, on Thursday, and do a preview of the Monday game. Yeah,
and if we're gonna, the show will bleed over into the start of the Monday game, so there might be some times where we kind of just chill out and watch the game. And you're going to be in studio for probably the 2 Cowboy ones, I'm assuming, which we'll get into here. By the way, this show, Jesus Christ, what am I doing? Intern Noe, how are you doing? What are you drinking? I got to get that out of the way first when we're drinking.
I'm doing well. Today I'm doing a little bit of scotch, some Glenmorangie. It's a Tale of the Forest. It's a single malt that's crafted from barley, kilned with woodland botanicals. All that's to say, it has like a slight smoky smell and taste.
Tofu shit right there.
Yeah, it's like a little bit of smoke with like fruity pear-ish flavor to it. I like it. It's pretty good. It's pretty light.
I always like to see what you post online. Go to our Facebook, OutDrank The Coverage. By the way, we've picked up 500 followers this month alone. I'm really enjoying that. The numbers we're getting on here and the numbers we're getting on our YouTube stuff. Our last look back, which is on YouTube up free. We'll explain that here later in the time. We're not going to bombard you with ads right now. We're going to sneak them in when you're not expecting it. But one of the things we would talk about is we just recorded a look back at the top 5 Dallas Cowboys rivals. Number 4, the Green Bay Packers. Number 3, the San Francisco 49ers. So I put the 49er one up on Patreon first and then shared it. And we know our Patreon is going to take a little while to get numbers going and all that. We totally get that. I put the Green Bay one up on YouTube, and I have yet to share it anywhere, and we've got like 12,000 views on it. That's freaking awesome. To not have advertised the show yet and to have that many views, that tells us, you've said it best. At times you're trying to figure out, is people watching? Is people listening? And we're getting the numbers. Now, I will say this. We would like more interaction. We want more questions. We want more comments. We're going to have fun, though, because apparently that one of the Green Bay Packer video got bombed with comments. And I'm really concerned about some of the robots out there. It feels like that they were ready to kill themselves if it wasn't for our show. One of them literally said, I don't have the will to live until I see one of your videos. So we know they're robots, but that kind of makes us feel special. That way, just remember this, robots, when y'all do uprise and try to kill us, you enjoy intern Noe the Pro and I's our football talks.
Oh yeah. I can't wait for you to read some of your favorite comments.
Oh my God, they're so freaking hilarious. I posted them. We have a Discord. By the way, if you join our Patreon channel, OutDrank The Coverage, we actually will have an OutDrank The Coverage Patreon for just the people that have joined and are paying. I think it's the $5 tier. Just to let you know. So we're again, everything we put on Patreon between now and the regular season is probably going to be free. But we are going to start putting certain shows that are only Patreon. And by what I mean only is they're going to be like fantasy football shows. So there's going to be no point in putting them up the next week on YouTube because they're time sensitive. So we want to build up our Patreon audience. So please check out our Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/OutDrank The Coverage. And the San Francisco show is up on that, just so everybody knows. It's ready to go. It will be put on YouTube here in probably next week as well. But what we're here tonight for, by the way, I'm also drinking. I'm drinking. I promise this isn't a water bottle. No, he knows I like to do this. I have this. And so when I'm near an end of a bottle, I tend to want to get rid of the big bottle. And so this is from Friday. This is what's left from Friday's show, buddy. We had a good day.
Yeah, it was definitely a good day.
So anyway, I'm drinking.
So you're doing good, and you're drinking Good Night Lovin'?
I'm doing good, and I'm loving the show. It's going to be a nice night, so it's Good Night Lovin'. This is my favorite vodka at the moment right now, so I do appreciate it. But anyway, if you want to look at the table and you're like, wait a minute, why does Terry have random helmets on the table? These are not random. This, sir, and madam, for those that don't know, and we'll talk about it later, this is the 2024 NFL schedule for your Dallas Cowboys. This is 1 through, and then this is whatever. I think it's 8, and then 9 through 17, just so you know. We'll talk about all that. We'll get into all the schedules, the way we're going to do this tonight. This is probably going to be almost exclusively just a schedule show, but we're going to talk the Cowboys schedule. We're going to talk the Houston Texans schedule. We're going to talk the national schedules, and then we'll kind of give our ideas on who has the toughest schedules, maybe who has the easiest schedules, all that kind of fun stuff. When you look at it, before we get into the Cowboys, the Texans, the individual teams, anything, when you look at it, do you like, though, for the most part, the schedule that the NFL has brought out?
I think they did the best job they could, considering the 17th game adds a new wrinkle to it of spreading it out as best they could and giving teams that didn't do well the season prior, for the most part. Now, the Giants got a little bit hosed, but for the most part, yeah, I think it was good distribution of some good games, good times of the season, some breaks, where they play a Thursday one week and then they don't play again until the following Sunday or Monday. For the most part, yeah. I think the 49ers and the Giants got hosed the most, but we'll talk about that later. I was thinking actually, well, let me get your thoughts on this. Do you think it's been evenly distributed, or do you think the schedule just doesn't look good for a lot of teams this year?
So I will say we are at the point of salary cap and how even teams are, that I think that anything we talk about now probably won't matter that much in the season, because with how it works now, you're going to have 8 to 15 teams not performing like they should, or maybe not performing or performing better than we thought they would. But at the end of the day, you're going to have a lot of 9 and 8s. That, I hate to tell folks, that's the idea. The NFL wants as many 9 to 8s as possible, because that tells you that you're it's absolutely even each and every week. And I think it was last year we went into the last 4 weeks of the season with the highest amount of teams that could still qualify for the playoffs that had ever happened in the history of the NFL. That's what they want. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that's what they want. That's what the NBA wants. That's why the NBA has the play-in. Everybody is trying to figure out, because we are in an era now, and this part's not necessarily bad, because I complain about we care too much about champions, but we also are in an era now where we don't really allow a lot. We don't want a lot of teams to just be 50 and 50. You got to figure it out. You're either building or tearing down, and the NFL is trying to eliminate that. The NFL is trying to keep everybody around 9 and 8, 10 and 7. You'll have your outliers, a couple 12 and 5s. You'll have your outliers, a couple 4 and 13s, but everybody else they want to keep in that middle. I think for the schedule, I think they did a good job on that.
Yeah, and I agree with you that there's going to be some seasons where an 11-6 team is the number one seed in a conference. And it's not because they're bad or they're heavily flawed. It's just that the competition just rised up and new defensive trends have been approved. And then now with the new wrinkle of the new kickoff rule, that's going to probably cost some good teams a game or two. So
go ahead and explain that real quick if people don't remember. We talked about it a couple weeks ago, but the NFL, this is going to be. Is this the biggest impact to the NFL football since the 2-point conversion and instant replay?
Since instant replay, yes.
And I even think maybe as far as just actual in-game decision making, I think the 2-point conversion is more important. Now, it's important for replay, of course, to whether they caught it or not, but just how coaches go into the week. Coaches now have 5 or 6 plays they have as their 2-point package, and they have 5 or 6 defenses they have as their 2-point package. Now with kickoffs and kick returns, we're about to have a Wild West year where we don't know what's going to happen. But coaches are going to figure it out. And I will say this, as a Cowboy fan, I am extremely happy with who they have as the special teams coach, because we'll get into their schedule. But when I legitimately think this might be the toughest Cowboy schedule since maybe 2019, 2018. I was kind of looking back at the old schedules. 2020 was pretty tough. And by the way, it's literally the same AFC conference that they were playing. And you've literally got everybody still really good in that conference. There are no bad teams in the AFC North. And so for that reason alone, I think Dallas is going to have a tougher time this year. That special teams, Jim Fossil, that could help. Or John Fossil. Wait.
Yeah, Jim is his dad.
Yeah, which one's his Bones?
Let me look it up.
Is that his dad or his brother? I think we were shocked. We thought it was his brother and it was his son, or we thought it was his. Anyway, point is, there's a Fossil as the special teams coach for the Dallas Cowboys, and I always liked him. This is his 3rd year now. I've always been a big fan of his. But I especially like it now because he seems like the guy. He's one of those guys who will figure out the loopholes and figure out where to exploit this new rule.
So John Fossil is the Cowboys special teams coach. He is the son of Jim Fossil.
That just blows my mind, dude. Sorry.
So Jim Fossil, may he rest in peace. He was born in 1949, and then John Fossil, the Cowboys special teams coach, he's born in 1974. So, and
he has always looked 30 years older than his dad did, even before his dad died. I'm just being honest. Am I wrong? I mean, that's why he's got Bones. His nickname is Bones because he's tall, skinny, and he looks like Skeletor.
Hey, Brett did make a good point. Do you want to just dive right into the schedule now, or do you want to talk about the other news outside of football?
Who said that?
Brett on our Discord.
Brett Lee or Brett? Which Brett? I don't know how. I don't know if I trust. I don't know if I trust NFT's Brett. Well, so was there any other news outside of the NFL schedule that you did want to talk about? Let's go. I like that. Let's hit that first. First off, I'll say it. Dallas-Fort Worth sports. Holy crap! We've got the Dallas Mavs and we have the Dallas Stars both in the Western Conference Final. People don't realize this will be the third out of 4 years that the Dallas Stars have been in the Western Conference Finals. We're past the 2020. Oh, that was a fun, cute little pandemic, and it was awesome. It was a blast. But this is a valid West power who, last year I was okay with them not making the Stanley Cup, but now I kind of feel like, okay, it's time now. You need to make that next step and get back to the Stanley Cup, but also get back to the Stanley Cup as a team that can actually win it, because nobody thought they would really win it in 2020.
Yeah, I mean, they weren't really that good of a team in 2020. The 2019 team was very tough and gritty and had that tough 7-game series loss to the St. Louis Blues, who ended up winning the
yeah. And you kind of felt like whoever won that game might have – I think if Dallas wins that game, they win the Cup that year. That's how those two teams were just about a shade above everybody else in that moment.
Yeah, and 2020 was kind of a downturn for them, but they still – because of the pandemic – the playoff system was all weird. They had like a round robin tournament for the top 4 seeds. And even though you were number 1 seed in the regular season, you might play as a 3 seed because of the basically soccer round. You're in the table and you're playing the other 3 top teams in the league in your conference. And then if you don't do well, you get seeded a lot worse than you were before. So,
yes.
And then 21, they didn't make it. That was another weird year because the Canadiens were moved over to another conference. They ended up making one of the worst records in hockey. They ended up making it to the conference or the Stanley Cup finals, and they played the Tampa Bay Lightning, who they currently are in the same conference. So it's just another weird year. But yeah, last season, it's kind of playing like it is this season, where one of the top stars, Hintz or Robertson or Pavelski, are going to step up in one of the rounds, and the rest of the team follows. I think this year's team is just, they look younger, they look tougher. They have enough veteran leadership with Pavelski and Ben. And Sagan is starting to come on a little bit.
Sagan has had, you're finally seeing him 100% healthy. So he's had a
resurgence.
He's been out there spying on the team. He's had a resurgence. Jamie Benn. I think Jamie Benn's resurgence really over the last year and a half has been the one that's been more surprising, because with Sagan, you just realize how injured he was. People don't understand how bad his legs were by the end of 2020. I mean, he was like just absolute terrible. And then you wondered, okay, he'll never reach that top level, and he hasn't. But on this team, as a number 2 or number 3 guy in the scoring lines, you're not relying on him to get 30 minutes a night in the first line. You're perfectly fine. And I'll go ahead and say this. Wyatt Johnson has absolutely saved them, because I don't think we all expected Joe Pavelski to completely crater in the playoffs. He had a solid regular season. He's older. We all get that. But you kind of felt, okay, it's still Joe Pavs. He'll get it in the playoffs. He hasn't. But Wyatt Johnson has now stepped up to be the top guy. And you've got a guy like Jason Robertson. You and I were just talking about this. I think he had a better season this year than he did last year, even though he doesn't have the goals, because he has legitimately became the Mike Modano of this team, where he is one of the better two-way forwards. And if you don't know hockey, that's really important. When you get guys who are willing to play defense and give up goals, because that changes your team. And I really like how Dallas is constructed. And I say that the pressure's on them. I think it is, but this team should be competitive for legitimately the foreseeable future.
Because they're young at all the right positions, and they have veteran leadership, but there's more youth than there are.
Well, and you know what they're being known for now, and this is so huge in any sport, but especially hockey. If you're a guy like a Joe Pavs, a Corey Perry, a Matt Duchene, where you have been great other places, but you're kind of in that age where nobody's really wanting to commit a long-term to you because you're kind of older. You go to Dallas on 1 year, you look great, and then you can either stay there like Paz or go like Corey Perry until he just effed up everything wherever he did. I can't. The two stories I want to hear from hockey is the Jim Montgomery story. What was the moment that got him fired from Dallas? And for Corey Perry, what was the moment that Chicago said, you suck? And he goes, you know what? Y'all are right. My bad. Because if you didn't know anything about Corey Perry, to get him to admit that something bad went down. What if him and Jim Montgomery were like partying when they were in Dallas? What if that's what it came up? Remember, Corey Perry was here. And they say the Chicago Blackhawk incidents with him was alcohol. It sounds like he's, and by the way, I want to, if you're a Stars fan, you know this. I don't know what's going on with his life, but Valerie Nishishin, who's now with the Colorado, had a great first round. And to be fair, there's a part of the reason why Dallas won so easily over them is he wasn't there. He's a former Star. Apparently, whatever's going on in his life, he's trying. I hope he figures it out. And I want to point out, the NHL does it right when it comes to that kind of stuff. They're not worried about suspending players or kicking them off. They're first worried about them getting help. And then if they break the rules, of course, they have to suffer the consequences, but it's still not like some of the others where you get 2 chances and you're gone forever or anything.
Yeah, that's kudos to the NHL, even though, they're still trying to gain more of a market share, compete with the NFL and in the NBA. They're growing. They've been growing since they came out of lockout almost 20 years ago. And I think they're doing it right. They're slowly increasing the cap. These players they open up the offense. It's just much more fun to watch hockey, even from the comfort of your own home. I always love going to the game. The game is always fun to be at.
It's still way more enjoyable to watch in person, but on TV is at least exciting if your team is good.
All right. And good point about Modano, because Robertson's more consistent this year than he was last year. And 2, with Modano, he was giving up about 15 goals a season to be more of a two-way player. He was a 50-goal a season guy. Yeah. He changed his, he changed the way he's played, and he's more like a 30, 35 goal scorer. And it really helped the Stars and their identity under Ken Hitchcock, and ended up leading them to make the Stanley Cup Finals twice and win it once.
Yeah, and it took what's his name from the Devils, goaltender, basically is the reason.
Brodeur.
Yeah, I mean, he just had a wonderful series. That's one of those that went 6, but it was way closer than it could have easily went 7. It could have easily went Dallas's way. That was back when it's kind of funny seeing all these newer Stars fans when the game went to overtimes. Oh my God, this is late. Oh my God. I'm like, oh my God, y'all should have been back there watching when it was 99, 2000, the famous Edmonton series where Dallas would sweep Edmonton, but all 4 of them would go into overtime. And it's just different now. You score quicker, which I like. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I was laughing at that. But yeah, it's fun. You and I, as just fans, not even the shows we do, it's an absolute blast to be back to where we were, this is even better than 2011 because the Stars are absolutely way better. Back then, they were still kind of a threat. I know they had that, what year was it? They had that surprise run like 2009 or 2010. They made it to the Western Conference Finals. And they really didn't deserve to be there.
I think it was 2008 against the Red Wings, right?
Yeah, and they got beat. I mean, it wasn't terrible, but they had, just like 2020, they had kind of gotten the route perfect for them. But it's nice, man. It's nice to friggin' wake up. It's nice to be mad at the Rangers for being 500. It's nice to be, I have all this nervous energy in May that I'm not used to having, because usually you get the Stars or the Stars or Mavs good at this. It's rare you get them both at the same time. I legitimately think we might end up being in the best era of Dallas sports, maybe in 20 years, maybe forever.
Edmonton at Vancouver tonight. Who wins Game 7?
I want Vancouver to win. Edmonton still scares me. Just when you've got Connor McDavid and you've got the line that he's on, and you've got a team that I think they're scoring 3.9 goals a game, they still scare me. But in saying that, Vancouver is one of those hockey teams that, just like we talked about Dallas 2020, there's always one that just finds its way deep into the playoffs that's good. And Vancouver's really good. Vancouver might be the second deepest team left, and Dallas is the deepest team. And Vancouver goes three lines really well. Their power play or their power kill is a lot like Dallas penalty kill. It can be really bad at times. Like Dallas has the worst penalty kill of any team left, but Dallas penalty killed Colorado like crazy. It's kind of like the bullpen for the Rangers last year, and Vancouver's a lot like that. So I still think I'd rather play Vancouver though. Bless you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I'd rather play Vancouver. They're a year or two away from really contending. They're young, and they kind of broke through this year. They were on their way last year, and they kind of went on a late season run. But yeah, I think if the Oilers make it, they'll be the biggest challenge for the Stars. I'm really curious to see who comes out of the East. The Rangers and Panthers are very formidable. They're
the Texas Rangers playing the AL West. No, Jesus Christ, dude, get it right now.
New York Rangers.
I was a New York Ranger fan as a kid.
I liked them only because when I started watching in '93, they were one of the best teams in hockey, and they won.
Mark Messier and Gretzky and all that. Yeah,
they broke the curse. You know, the fans were chanting 1940.
Yeah. Speaking of, Vancouver hates Mark Messier.
Oh, I bet.
Because there's a whole like documentary on the year that met. So if people don't remember, in '96, Messier went from New York to Vancouver. And to be fair, Mark Messier was on his last legs. Like Vancouver over expected, and he thought he could still. So he over promised, and it just absolutely get cracked. But anyway, I've always liked the Rangers. Their fan base they're more Mets than Yankees, and they're fun because they're not used to winning. And so it's fun watching them finally have a lot of success again.
Who do you think comes out of the East?
Rangers. I think it's Rangers and Stars.
Yeah.
And I still, and you know this, I told you at the beginning of the year, as long as Jake Ottinger plays like he's able to, the Stars are the deepest team in the NHL. The very fact that it took them 7 games against the Vegas Knights, yet let's just be honest, they basically dominated the Colorado Avalanche. The Avalanche were one comeback in the first game away from being swept, and it not even being close. And so for them to bounce back after playing the Stanley Cup champions, a team that, right or wrong, used the system to be able to maybe have the deepest team in the league outside of Dallas. Dallas beats them in 7 and then goes to Colorado, who has one of the most dynamic first lines in hockey, and dominates them. I just think the Stars are rolling right now.
Yeah, I think they're rolling. I think they'll beat whoever comes out. The Oilers will be tough because of their offense, but we'll see.
They scare me.
So speaking of deep teams, when you're referring to the Stars, let's talk about the Mavs and Pacers in the NBA. Both make it to the conference finals.
It's going to happen, isn't it? It's going to happen.
The Fighting Carlisles versus a team that's very similar to the 2011 Mavericks, who ended up winning the NBA championship.
Is this team, and I'm saying this now, and I'm saying this understanding they might not, and I will say this, I still think if the Mavericks make the finals, it's a surprise. Like
Minnesota's a tough defensive team.
Dude,
man.
People don't understand. They only hear Minnesota and they think, oh, Minnesota. No, there's a reason this Minnesota team went down as deep as they did against the Nuggets and then just turned around and just literally dominated maybe the best roster in basketball in the Nuggets. Because as you said, this Minnesota team, this is the Minnesota team they thought they were getting 4 years ago when Jimmy Butler was on the team. And they thought they were going to be defensive minded and play transition basketball and 3-and-D and all that. And it took them a few years to finally get it. I'll put it this way. If Dallas wasn't in it, I would 100% be rooting for the Timberwolves. I want the Timberwolves to get a title.
You know, it's a good redemption story for Rudy Gobert.
Yeah, it really is.
That go out like he just was an idiot with Utah when he was coughing on the microphones right when the pandemic started. He got COVID. He gave Donovan Mitchell COVID, and it was like a whole thing. And then it ended up him being, gone from Utah a couple years later, going to Minnesota, which now with kind of like their version of the Twin Towers, Rudy Gobert, Karl Anthony Towns, no one goes into the paint on Minnesota. And then they got one of the bigger guards in basketball and Anthony Edwards, who's 6'4", 225.
Dude, he is a nightmare defensive matchup because he's quick. He's got that long, big wingspan. I know Gobert keeps winning the Defensive Player of the Year, and that's not deserved. I mean, it's deserved, but you literally got 3 guys on that roster that could win Defensive Player of the Year, and I don't think anybody would have a problem with. This is a really, really, really good team. I'll put it this way. It would not shock me if the Mavs got swept in this round, and it'd be all competitive games and be really good games. But I'm just telling y'all, folks, Minnesota, I know it's Minnesota, but if you put the Lakers on their chest, everybody would say that's the best, that's the best, just pure team in basketball right now. But because it's Minnesota, everybody's still, Celtics. I think Minnesota or Dallas beats the Celtics.
But can the Celtics beat the Pacers?
I don't think so. Well,
Pacers have one of the deepest. I think they have the deepest team in all of basketball.
Shooting, and I'm saying this after the Pacers just put on a freaking clinic. How crazy was that final game against the Knicks? And I know it's Game 7, so it comes out a little different. But does that game not remind you of Dallas versus the Lakers to complete the sweep, where Carlisle and the Mavericks in 2011 and Carlisle and the Pacers in 2024 just come out and I don't care what the Knicks would have done against the Pacers. They weren't stopping them. 67% shooting on the day for the Pacers.
I will give the Knicks credit. Brunson got hurt early in the game.
Yes, he did. And it wasn't one of those, oh, why couldn't he come back? You could tell he would have been at best 10%.
One of their best players left the game, or left game 3 or 4, hadn't played since, came in Game 7, left 5 minutes later. The other star player, Ingram, Brandon Ingram?
Yes.
He was out for this series. They had a lot of injuries, almost a starting 5 full of injuries. So you have to give them credit there. Like they were not 100%. Oh, Julius Randle. Sorry, I'm not Brandon Ingram. Julius Randle. And but it doesn't excuse you from almost allowing 70% shooting from the floor.
Well, and I mean, you're 100% right on everything you said. But at best, if everybody's healthy, if the Pacers are shooting like that, at best, the Knicks just hope they could get into a shootout with them. And, we all know for some reason the Knicks in playoff basketball, that just doesn't ever. By the way, I do enjoy the Knicks being back. I enjoy the Pacers being back. Of course, I enjoy the Mavericks being back. But I really, there was that time in the 90s where unless you were a Bulls fan, you kind of rooted for the Pacers and the Knicks and the Heat just because you wanted to see somebody bring down the big bad Bulls. And so I really enjoyed watching them. So I really do hope this, and I don't think it is, I really do hope this isn't a one-off Knicks team. I hope this is a team that truly is building to at least be a consistent Eastern Conference threat, because it just sounds right when New York, Boston, Philadelphia, and Indiana are all there in the top 6 or 7. It just seems right with the world in basketball.
Depends on what Jalen Brunson wants to do in the offseason. He was already asked about it after the game, but he wasn't in the right mindset to even talk about it. So whatever he does in the offseason, that'll determine if the Knicks are going to be even competitive in 2024.
That's a really good point. And I will say this. Do you think – because he is fully his contract is fully on his option, right?
Yep.
Is there a world where Brunson goes back to the Mavericks, or do you think that bridge got burned?
I think that, I think he wants to be the star of the game. The guy, and I don't think it would, because it's really guard heavy. Like we have Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic.
Are you ready to say Kyrie Irving is there, though? I mean, I think he is. Don't get me wrong. I think he's 100% happy here. But he's been at other places where for a year he looked happy, and then it just took whatever it was that just, you see what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
He hadn't been talking much this season, and
he hasn't talked at all, dude.
He let his play do the talking. He had a pretty good season. Him and Luka kind of gelled together. The problem with Brunson when he was with Dallas is everything was inconsistent with him and Hardaway, because you had to funnel everything to Luka, so they couldn't just get their consistent flow in each game. So like Brunson would have a big game one day, and then you wouldn't hear from him for another 5-6 games. Same thing with Hardaway, but it'd be like more 10-15 games. So If Brunson did come back, him and Luka would have to work something out to where they can be more like Luka and Kyrie Irving is right now.
Yeah, that's a really good point right there. And I just want to see Kyrie next year be the same comfort. Like that's all I worry about, because just you see these with guys, fair or not, who have been labeled as head cases, and I think it's fair with Kyrie. And I'll say this: one of the things that has impressed me with what Kyrie has said this year, when the few times he's talked, is he's admitted, yeah, in Brooklyn, I probably, I allowed, myself to talk more than I should have. And when I was with Cleveland, I think I want to end the Dallas Maverick talks with this. I think there's a legitimate chance. I will go ahead and say more than 50% chance that LeBron James ends up on the Dallas Mavericks next year.
I mean, it really just depends on where Bronny goes, right?
I don't even think I don't think that matters as much as people think. I think it matters. But I think LeBron's also, first off, I don't think Bronny, even though, hey, by the way, all the jokes about Bronny in college, apparently during the their pro day, like the combine, people were very, very impressed. So he might have actually put himself back in the drafting board. But I don't even know how much that's important at the end of the day, if it comes down to, okay, Bronny gets drafted by, now I'm trying to think of who's a bad team right now in the NBA.
Spurs, Hawks.
Yeah, well, now the Spurs have Hawks. Well, now the Hawks.
Well, Hawks did they were in the play-in.
Yeah,
but like Spurs and.
But the Spurs feel like they're on the way up. I'm talking about going to a really bad
Washington.
team. Yeah, Washington. Washington's perpetually never quite know where they're on. I don't see LeBron going somewhere if Bronny goes somewhere and gets drafted where it's a 20-win team. I'm going strictly on if LeBron James feels like, okay, I want to go win a title. I think him and Kyrie feel there's unfinished business between them.
They won the title in 2016 with the Cavaliers, but you feel like they kind of left 3 or 4 titles.
Kyrie broke up early, and Kyrie's admitted that. Kyrie 100% has admitted, hey, at the end of the day, I just, I couldn't accept that I wasn't the guy, even though if you can make the case that they don't win that title without Kyrie, especially against Golden State when they were doubling up on James, and Kyrie was like, 5 of 7 from 3 points in the third quarter in that game 4 that kind of switched everything around. But I really think LeBron James comes to Dallas, and I think it's a really good fit, because the one knock on Luka in this offense still is it gets bogged down when the ball's in his hand. Yes, he leads the league or second in the league in the assist, but it's not transition. It's not Dirk assist. It's Michael Jordan assist, drive in, kick out. That's great for stats, but that's just, you can get bogged down at times. Now, put LeBron James as your point forward and all that, with Kyrie Irving as your point guard. Then you can move Luka straight to 2, and you've got those 3 as your backcourt with the defensive guys now that they have that are all young, all under contract. I mean, that looks pretty damn good next year.
And LeBron followed the same path that Kobe did and Jordan did, where they had a great offensive game, and then because they had that Mamba mentality, they developed a defensive game later on in their career.
No such thing as a Mamba mentality. Overrated. As always, overrated.
LeBron can play defense as well.
You leave that. I haven't. Look, and it sucks to say this now. Sorry, my mic stand's been giving me some issues. It sucks to say this now because he has passed. I respect the hell out of the person Kobe Bryant was becoming. We can talk the whole Colorado incident and all that, but from that point on, but I will always still consider where people put him in the pantheon of greatness, he is slightly overrated. I like Kobe Bryant. Don't get me wrong. Kobe Bryant won a title without Shaq, but if you're going to knock LeBron James for the 2011 Mavericks, then you've got to knock Kobe Bryant for the exact same series, because this wasn't a Laker team that was limping into the playoffs. This was your back-to-back defending champ, who, by the way, I just read this the other day. I verified it. They were the hottest team in the NBA going into the playoffs that year. They'd only lost 6 times in 27 games. They were 20-6 or 21-6. So if you're going to knock LeBron and knock him for the 2011 Mavericks, why isn't Kobe getting the same thing? Because you can make the case that was the best Laker team, outside of Shaq being on there.
It was a great second act for Kobe with the Lakers.
I think he needed that to even be considered a top 5 player. He had to win one without Shaq.
They ended up winning 2, but
I'm saying he just had to at least win one. That's what
the thing is. They were actually a pretty good team in 2007, but they were just missing Paul Gasol.
Yep.
And some people that just hate on Kobe, they're going to say, "Oh, well, he still needed a big man." I mean, everybody we as Americans do a bad job of individualizing team sports. Michael Jordan couldn't win it without Scottie. I'm sorry, that's true. He needed a supporting cast. He needed a number 2 guy.
Isn't it weird that you feel like you have to apologize for that? Because you said it best. And let's be honest. This all started at NFL quarterback. You didn't individualize players until the quarterback. Because if you individualize players before the NFL quarterback, then Bill Russell should be the greatest all-time NBA player. End of discussion because of how many titles he won. Yeah. Nobody thinks of that, though, because you didn't do that in the NBA yet. You didn't individualize. And then the NFL comes along in the 70s, specifically, and this is not a knock on these 2 players, but specifically Bart Starr and Terry Bradshaw, I think, created this whole idea of, well, we can't explain why they still win with good, not amazingly stud, great, top 3 ever quarterbacks. So it's they just know how to win. That's what it is. They know how to win. And that started that crap. And you're exactly right. It's now in basketball. And hell, it might even be even worse with basketball with the LeBron James versus Michael Jordan versus, Kobe O'Bryant versus Dirk Nowitzki. Wait, he's not in that conversation. He's in my mind. But that conversation, you're right, dude. It has become individualized in basketball.
Yeah, I mean, you don't really see it too much in hockey, even though they're starting for stars. It's something that none of those players that we mentioned could have ever won a championship without a good number 2 guy, a good supporting cast around them. It's not 1-on-5; it's 5-on-5, and you got to look at it as that. The 2001 Patriots. They want to praise Tom Brady. He was definitely not the best player on that team.
You're right, and you can make a case where whenever it was Tom Brady throw all over, they didn't win Super Bowls.
Yeah. It took him a long time to finally win one with him as more like with the ball in his hands more. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, you could even make the case, though, that the ones that they won going forward after he became the guy, the Rams Super Bowl, not the first one, the second one, defense. Mm-hmm. Tampa Bay versus Kansas City, defense. When's the last time that Tom Brady ever win a Super Bowl? Because against the Eagles, and this isn't even his fault, but against the Eagles in a shootout, what happened? They lost.
I would say the Falcon one was more just
that's probably the
Shanahan.
one.
But like Shanahan just kind of derped it up on offense, calling plays.
Yes, but that is the one where you're right that, and look, it doesn't matter who it is. Any comeback takes the other team to make some stupid mistakes. But that was a game where Tom Brady put the team on his shoulder offensively for more than a one drive, like for a whole half. So I will give him that one. And I'm not trying to take it away from Tom Brady, by the way. We both acknowledge one of the best quarterbacks of all time. But you're right. You start breaking down those Super Bowls and those Super Bowl years and the years where you let Tom Brady cook, 2007 to 2014, they lose 2 Super Bowls and they don't win one.
And then the 2014 season when they played the Seahawks, it was really just Pete Carroll made a bad call and they just, it was more luck.
I mean, again, I'm not acting like I didn't know that, but it's one of those things that I know that, but when you break it down, you're 100% right. And by the way, if Seattle doesn't F that up, it would have been so fucking awesome because the Giants would have then been beat by the 2 most insane catches in the history of not only the Super Bowl, but in the history of NFL sports and football in general. Everybody remembers the David Tyree, but was it Lockett? I can't remember who it was.
Yeah, I think it was someone else. Go ahead, keep talking.
But the Seattle one, same thing. On people forget that that was on that best plays everybody forgets that I showed you the day. We were going to talk about last week. We ended up talking about other things. But yeah, so Seattle makes the same kind of third down, and Russell throws it up, and the dude knocks the ball in the air, and he ends up on his back and catches it. And of course, we all know that David Tyree, he pins the ball to his hand. But anyway, I don't know how we get on this is why I love our show on Monday Night Happy Hours. We're going to do the schedule. Don't worry, folks. But we start with the schedule. We end up with the Mavericks, and we're now on how, as you said, Kobe Bryant was a terrible player.
I never said that.
What are your views on Kobe? You and I have never really talked that. What are your views? Like, if you were to give your top 5 right now, top 5 all-time NBA players, where would you be?
Well, Michael Jordan to me is still number 1 all time. I'd have to put. Oh man, everything else is pretty convoluted because it's kind of hard to rank some of these great players. I could put Kareem Abdul-Jabbar number 2.
Yeah,
I could easily put Shaq in the top 5 somewhere.
Wilt
Chamberlain, just outstanding offensive talent.
As we said, Bill Russell,
Larry Bird. Like, if it wasn't for his back, he'd probably be close to number 2 or 3.
Has Larry Bird somehow kind of almost become underrated because of the Jordans, the Kobes, the LeBrons? I mean, it feels like in 1986, Larry Bird was a top 2 player in the NBA. And then, as you said, that back. And he's one of those that he's like Drew Pearson in football. He played long enough that he has a stat line already. And if he just had those 2 or 3 more at his near peak years, I think Larry Bird walks away as easily the number 2 player at that point. He was never going to surpass Jordan, I don't think. But for me, my favorite player, or my top 10 players.
It was Jermaine Kearse, the receiver that made that ridiculous catch for the Seahawks. Sorry, it took me a while to look that up.
Oh, no, I knew you were looking. That's why I didn't look. You and I know each other too well. Yeah. I saw that you were looking. But anyway, I don't know. When my top 5 players is Magic Johnson, number 1.
Oh.
I think what he did to facilitate the ball, and as a 6'9" point guard, I just don't think people understand how much he revolutionized that position and the game in of itself. Number 2, I have LeBron. Number 3, I have Michael Jordan.
Jeez.
Oh. What? I just think. Look, I just think LeBron is just size-wise, speed-wise, position-wise. And if you notice, him and Magic do a lot of the same things at the same size. And I always, when you can take a dude and put him on, like if you have 5 positions like you do in basketball, if you could take a dude and play him in all 5 positions and be successful, you're great. I'm sorry, you're great. You cannot argue that with me. You can argue the placement of Jordan, but we go back to, I don't put as much on championships as other people do when it comes to just the greatness of a player. Michael Jordan was amazing. Michael Jordan was great. I'm not trying to say he wasn't, but I don't make him great simply because of how great he was in the finals. That's a cherry, but that's not the final cherry.
Another problem with the NBA is the time period. The game has it just changed so much since the 70s and since the 80s, since the 90s. It's just a different game. So it's really hard to place players in certain buckets. I guess I try to transplant players in today's game into like Jordan's era or Bird and Magic's era or Wilt's era or Bill Russell's era and see how they would perform. No, I do give you credit. LeBron should be up there because he is a versatile 6'8" guy that can play multiple positions. I think a lot of people, if you ask them one-on-one, will say, yes, he's an all-time great player. The argument really is just the positioning.
That's a good point.
That's really all it is. Now, Kobe Bryant, to his credit, he said he just loved Jordan. He emulated him. Like a lot of stuff, all of his movements. He will never say he's better than, if he was alive today, he would never say he was better than Jordan. He worshiped Jordan, always wanted to be like him, be like Mike. But yeah, I mean, like, I don't want to, LeBron's up there. I still would put Jordan up there. I would put LeBron. I'd put Wilt. I had to put Shaq, and they're seeing one that dominant ever until this day.
And Shaq gets kind of, again, he kind of gets lost in that. Everybody acknowledges his greatness, but when you go, okay, so where would you put him in your greatness? You're right. That kind of gets, I think he kind of convolutes it because it's really weird. You give players like LeBron James credit for their speed, their size. You give Jordan credit for his killer instinct. But then when somebody like when it's physical, you just go, oh, well, yeah, because he was bigger than everybody. Okay, and Jim Brown was bigger than everybody. There's a reason why, and I am not trying to say that Jim Brown in 1980s wouldn't be a good running back, but I'm saying Jim Brown in 1980s is probably in the top 5 of running backs and might lead the year, lead the league in rushing 1 or 2 years, but he's not putting up the numbers he did in the 60s when he was literally the biggest dude on the field sometimes.
He was a man amongst boys, yeah.
And he should not be knocked about that. That's part of being a great athlete is you are physically better than everybody else. That's just how that works. And for Shaq, honestly, you want to talk about just pure who dominated more, just pure domination, week to week to week, game to game to game. Who did teams fear more? And Shaq's right up there with Jordan at 1 and 2.
I'd probably put Jokic somewhere in the top 10.
He's getting up there, dude.
I want to put him at 5. I don't want to leave out Dirk, but I'd be more biased just because I'm a Mavericks fan. Jokic has more overall all-around game than Dirk did. But what Dirk did on offense, it was unbelievable.
I want to argue just a little bit about he had a more all-around game. I don't think Dirk, because of Dallas never played him at true center because of Donnie's style. If you'd have got Dirk in year 2 with Rick Carlisle, I think he could have easily been the center like Jokic and kind of gets the rebounds and the blocks and stuff. But you never asked that from Dirk. And also Dirk isn't physically as dense. Jokic, I didn't realize it until I saw it I saw a picture of him, just like somebody taking a picture at the Maverick game, just how big he is. I don't mean just tall. He is a house. Like he's one of those guys, and don't send me any, he works out 100 times. I'm telling you, he's one of those guys that rolls out of bed and he dominates because he's just, again, so physically big. I don't think Dirk ever got the chance to prove that he could be that way.
Yeah, but the thing is, if he grew up here, he would have been more of a traditional back to the basket center. So it all works out. They're all great players.
No, that's a point too, though.
Yeah. Just to get through some of the other news, Hall of Fame center Jim Otto, who was one of the original Raiders, 86 years old, one of the greatest centers of all time, Mr. Raider. He passed away.
Let's do a drink to Mr. Otto. He was always a favorite Raider of mine growing up.
Big upset, sort of. Alexander Usyk defeats Tyson Fury to become the first undisputed champion in a 4-belt era. That was in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, as they're trying to bring more attention and bring more business to the country.
So
their investment fund.
So what are your thoughts on that?
Their change, as a black man, change, it takes a while.
You're black? Sorry,
I guess it's my last day on the show.
You're like Theo Rossi and Sons of Anarchy. We love you until we find out. That's my fiance is watching that series for the first time.
One of my favorite all-time shows, Sons of Anarchy. Yeah.
So, and by the way, this is what we do in Happy Hour. By the way, happy hello to the 2,500 that are viewing. We appreciate you. I hate that storyline because it's so stupid. Because if Theo Rossi, the character, just simply goes to the board and says, "Hey, this is me," I don't think they care. Anyway, sorry.
Well, they were very. It was more like a religion. They were by the book. If it's in the bylaws, they're going to follow it.
Well, that's why too.
I hope Studio Fiance doesn't watch this show because in the series finale that gets changed. I'm not going to say anything more. I'll just leave it at that.
Do you know I never have actually watched the final season fully because it had gotten. I kind of have a belief that unless you're special like Breaking Bad, 5 seasons is about where I want to see a show go. After that, you usually, unless something just changes in the story that works or whatever, usually you start to see shows kind of start to fall apart. And I kind of felt like that Suns season 6 was pretty tough too. I can't wait for it. She hasn't got there yet. We're almost there where they go to Ireland, which I'm not going to say is really good TV, but sure is freaking fun.
Yeah. Fantasy football gold in 2016, 2017, David Johnson, former running back for the Cardinals and other teams. He retired after 8 seasons. Scott Scheffler, the number 1 golfer in the world. He had a bit of a issue on day 2 of the PGA Championship.
All you honkies, I've been drinking so I can say it. All you honkies that are trying to defend that son of a bitch, and I know he's from Dallas. And by the way, he seems like he's a really good guy, good golfer, all that. But all y'all honkies trying to defend that some gun when he was so basically what happened, tragically, early Friday. Was it Friday when that happened?
Yeah, it was day 2.
Yeah, because it's right when you were coming over to record. So basically, about 5 a.m. or so, a pedestrian was walking across the highway. Apparently, where this golf course is, it's right off a highway. He's walking across the highway. He tragically gets struck and killed. And so what that leads to, of course, is a crime scene, all that. You have to do all that. They have to shut down everything until they can figure things out. And so apparently Scheffler, got there. And I get it. He was running late. I totally understand. I'm not saying he's the asshole, but you've got, if we're going to knock certain people of color for when they act stupid around the cops, then we need to do the same with the white folk because he was stupid. Cop says, hey, don't move. He says, no, I'm going to go around you. Cop jumps on the car door and he still drives. I don't care who you are. If you're going to claim when George Floyd or somebody else gets hurt, they need to all they should have done was listening to the cop and they'd have been fine. The only reason Scheffler might be alive is because they knew he was a golfer. I'm just saying that right now. He did stupid. Now, I don't think he should go to jail. I don't think he should lose. But just accept that he did something stupid. He did something really stupid. But you know what? That son of a bitch had the balls to go out and shoot a 66 after that. So I give him credit on that.
Yeah, you got to give him credit for
66. I mean, dude, my 14 times I've been arrested, I'm crying over in the corner. Well, that's because Bubba's always there. Anyway, that's not the point.
You've been arrested 14 times. Why have we not talked about this?
That's what you're worried about? You're not worried about Bubba? Wow, you're judging me too. Man, that's white people. We don't ever have a chance in this world. Make one mistake. But no, I just, that's the only thing that annoyed me. To me, it was kind of a funny, not funny, but because the guy died. A person died, but his reaction, it was just like, wait a minute, isn't that what you always was it comply? Yeah. Oh, he didn't comply, but I like him because he's a white golfer from Dallas. What? Them damn cops. Anyway, you ready to start talking some NFL?
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about college football and Hard Knocks is the Giants are going to be on it this season.
No, you keep misunderstanding that. The Giants are not on Hard Knocks this season. The Giants are on Hard Knocks off season that will start here in a couple weeks.
Like training camp.
No, off season.
Oh, it's a new show.
Yes, that's what I was trying to explain to you today. This is a completely new show. Apparently, they've already been. I think they started filming. If I remember what I read right, they start first episode will start with exit interviews. By the way, if you don't know, when a team ends a season, the next day, the reason you always have them at the locker room where the press can talk to them is because they're there for what's called exit interviews. Just kind of, hey, Noe, you played a great season. You're under contract. You're good. Come back. And then other people, hey, you're a free agent. We don't know what we're going to do. What are your thoughts on how the season went? And it's really smart. But anyway, so they start with exit season and they go up to training camp. That's just going to be the Giants. And then they're going to have a training camp team as well.
That's pretty cool because a lot of people don't know what happens after the draft and before training camp. I actually like what the Jets did or what Hard Knocks did last season with the Jets. They didn't really focus too much on those unsung heroes, those people that probably we'll never hear about again. They actually focused on some of the bigger stars like Aaron Rodgers and all of them. So I hope they continue that trend with the Giants. I hope they talk about Daniel Jones, Brian Burns, the new acquisition, how he's going to affect the defensive success for the Giants. So I hope they go that route because it could be like a make or break year for Brian Daboll as head coach. I'll definitely be watching that. We'll probably talk about it on Happy Hours in the future. So
I'm a big. One of my favorite types of books to read are the behind the scenes year. John Feinstein used to be the king of that. He wrote one for PGA called "A Good Walk Spoiled" that got just basically followed a bunch of people, studs and guys trying to get their tour card all at once. One of my favorite books was the Baltimore. I want to say it was whenever the new, what's his name? Steve Piscotty, the guy that became the new owner. It was right after, the year after he'd taken over. Billick was still there. Kyle Bowler was the quarterback. You still had Ray Lewis, but anyway, it was following them. I love those I eat those up. So the Giants, I love behind the scenes more than I love in season shows. We've talked about that before. And I agree with you. I think that Hard Knocks got a little too on the rookies for a while. I don't want it to be 100% on superstars. They've got to find that balance, though. And I thought with the Jets, it was kind of obvious because we all knew why they were there for the Jets. And that'll lead me into my schedule talk. Great segue, Noah. If you're Aaron Rodgers.
You're welcome.
If you're Aaron Rodgers.
All right.
Are you not a little concerned that your first game back will be on Monday night? I mean, that's a little, and I'm just saying, karma might be about to swing that big penis out on Aaron Rodgers with some of the things.
Whoa.
Nah,
someone's OutDrank The Coverage. Yeah, I mean, the NFL even said the Jets owe us some marquee games because Black Friday almost got ruined because of the Jets. Now, look at their schedule. They start with the 49ers on Monday Night Football in San Francisco. Then the following week, they go to Tennessee with all those new additions the Titans have, also on the road. And then they get, you think it's 4 straight home games, but I think one of them is against the Vikings in London, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it's a pretty daunting task. And they play the Bills. They play the Steelers. They play the Texans, luckily at home. It's a pretty tough schedule to start the season for them. But you know what? If Aaron Rodgers is healthy, I think they'll have a great season. And, I have high hopes for them as long as they're healthy. They were my team to win the division last year. They ended up winning 7 games, but that was only because Aaron Rodgers was out after 4 snaps.
Yeah.
So, I really think they'll be fine as long as they can get through that tough patch to start the season. And the end of the season actually going to be pretty tough too because they have to play at Miami, at Jacksonville, home against the Rams, at Buffalo, home against the Dolphins. Oh, and don't forget the Colts and Seahawks in November as well. To me, the end of their season is going to be much tougher than the beginning part of their season.
All right, so let's use that now to go ahead and start into it. NFL schedules. We wanted to get the other stuff out of the way because we realize how we outdrink the coverage sometimes. So, and it allows people to get in. So we've got enough people here. Let's go ahead and start. We're going to start with the Houston Texans.
Oh, you put up the Cowboy schedule.
I know.
A little misdirection there. Okay.
Misdirection. But let's start with the Houston Texans because now I feel like Houston is kind of in the same spot where Detroit was last year. Even though Houston made the playoffs this year, it still feels like this is going to be their coming out year. And they're going to do that with playing some very big, huge, what they haven't done in a long time. Even when they had Deshaun Watson, they weren't on national TV a ton. And usually when they were, it was because they were playing Dallas or they were playing, good team, the Patriots, the Chiefs. It wasn't because they were the focus point. I think this year they finally get a couple of Sunday night, Thursday night, Monday night games where they're the focal point, like week 2. They play and I know people are going to be talking about Caleb Williams, but still, you're going to also be talking about CJ Stroud because I think most people are wondering, can the Bears do what the Texans did last year?
Yeah, I'm looking at the Texans schedule, man. I don't like that they have a late bye, week 14. I don't like their December schedule at all. They play at Jacksonville. They host the Dolphins at Kansas City. They host the Ravens on Christmas Day at 3:30 Central Time. I don't like that part. And I don't like the fact that a lot of their road games are in October and November. And so it's just kind of an evenly distributed tough schedule. So
Well, I mean, this is what happens, and I know the schedules don't change as much as they used to, but there is a little bit of a difference when you're a first place team or a fourth place team, and that's a couple of games, and you get that. I like the start. I think with a team, when you're expecting to be as good as they are, you want to start strong because you just don't want is it a fluke, whatever all those things are. So when I look at that first 4 games, and maybe even, I mean, there's not a reason why they don't go into Green Bay on October 20th on October 20th with what, a 5-2 record, maybe 6-1. I think they beat the Colts. I think they beat the Bears. I think they beat Minnesota. I think they beat Jacksonville. I think
they beat the Bears.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, have you seen what the Bears did this offseason? And
no, that's great. But Caleb, look. Even C.J. Stroud did not come out last year throwing for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns in the first part of the season. There's going to be a struggle for that Bears team. I think the Bears are a playoff team. We'll talk more about that during our, of course, our offseason, our big preview show in August. I think the Bears are a good team. This is part of why scheduling and where you play teams matter. I think Texans catching them in week 2 is the perfect spot. Because Will Anderson, that offensive line is going to take a time to gel for the Bears. Caleb Williams is going to take some time to gel with his wide receivers. I like the Texans early in that one.
I agree. They're going to have a good start to the season.
Damn it, you made me all feel like I was defending myself. I thought you were about to come with some really good. I would tell you that number 1 quarterbacks in week 2 are traditionally 47. No, you're like, yeah.
I like what the Bears did to surround talent around 100%. Caleb Williams.
Bears are going to be scary come into the year.
They shored up most of their deficiencies. They'll still need in the future to keep improving their line play, and that's
their
really
line play is going to be the biggest way. And they got better this year. And I will say this: I would not shock me if they don't make the playoffs and they have kind of the similar season as they did last year. I do think any rookie quarterback is going to struggle early, and I don't know if they're quite yet deep enough to withstand that and get some ugly wins. Because that's what Houston did last year so well. But let's also remember there was a couple games where Houston had some really ugly losses too, where their offense just went to crap. Because
Carolina, the Jets.
What was it, 9-7 or some really ugly. But anyway,
ugly.
So my point is I think they start out 4-0, and then I think the next 3 games, really you can say the next 5 games, Buffalo, New England, Green Bay, Indy, and the Jets will decide their season. And I think it'll be decided good. I like what the Texans are doing. We all joke in our group Sports Rehab. You and I, there's like maybe 6 of us that are Cowboy fans. Everybody else is Houston fans. We have a lot of fun. But I'm telling you right now, I am 100% sold on the Houston Texans for 2024. And so much, I have them as my Super Bowl AFC team right now. Now, way early, but my way early, just looking at like I spent last night or yesterday afternoon just looking at all the schedules, and I just like how the schedule is put together for Houston. I agree with you, the late bye is going to suck, but if they go into that late bye as the first place team in the AFC South, and they're fighting for the number 2 or 3 seed, look at that last stretch. Miami, KC, Baltimore. They go 2-1 out of that stretch, depending on how all these teams are, of course, health-wise. If they go 2-1 in that stretch, watch out. The Texans are for real.
Yeah, for sure. But it's 3 games in 10 days. They have 6 days rest between Miami and KC, and they have 4 days of rest between KC and Baltimore.
Wait. You have a problem with that with this schedule, but when I point that out on the Cowboys schedule, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit, you just kind of poo-pooed that like, what's the big deal?
I just think I just think the quality of competition right there is just going to be pretty tough. I just think, they got to go at Kansas City in that weather right before December, and then they got to play Baltimore. I don't know how good Baltimore is going to be toward this point of the year, but they have Derrick Henry. They might just rely on him toward the end of this season. That's going to be a tough stretch. They need to pad some wins to begin the season, and the beginning of the schedule to start the season for Houston is going to be very favorable, and I think it's still going to be tough. But yeah, 5-2 going into Green Bay, Or is it 5-2? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 4-2 maybe going into Green Bay. That would be pretty good. The middle stretch is still going to be tough. You and I are going to be in studio for the November 18th Monday night game at Dallas.
Yeah, we're already calling that right now. And all you sports rehab folks that listen to us and, we banter back and forth, y'all asses better be on this show, like watching and viewing. Cause and of course, we'll talk about this when we get to the Cowboys schedule and the NFL schedules. But this is the first time, and I don't know why. And I'm not acting like I knew who Deshaun Watson was personally. I thought he was a great quarterback. I loved him at Clemson. I loved him with Houston. But I don't know why this Houston team just feels different, dude. And I really hope they're not letting Houston down. Because all jokes aside, Astros can go screw themselves now, but I would like the Texans. I would like a Houston football team to win a Super Bowl. They freaking deserve it.
The only thing I don't like about Houston is their uniforms coming up.
Oh my God. Now I will say this. You and I made the point. So if people don't know, as you can tell, hang on. I gotta see what I'm doing here. So I just want for a minute. So people that know, if you don't know, as you can tell when you look at the show, I have a lot of helmets. My fiance, for an early birthday gift, whatever you call it, completed my completion. So I have all the helmets of the NFL. Some of them are retro. Some of them, like the Detroit one, are alternates. But still, you and I were looking at like the Tennessee Titans, a team that we do not like their color change. Like we don't like it. But man, when you see that Titan helmet in person with that silver face mask and that really dark blue, that looks pretty damn good. I'm wondering if the red Houston helmet will end up like that. I will say this. I don't like the Houston, what they're basically calling the City Connect NFL, the black with the dark blue. It doesn't look that great to me. But anyway, point is, I'll have to see it in person. I think the red helmet with the horn might end up being pretty slick.
Just from what I've seen online, it doesn't look great to me.
I agree with you right there.
It might look great on the field. The best look for the Texans that I've seen still is the dark blue helmet with the all white uniform, or the red helmet with all white. Those are the best looks for them at present. I kind of wish they went back to the Houston Oilers look, but of course the Adams family probably won't allow that, unfortunately. But yeah,
I think though somebody, I can't remember, one of the sports rehab guys, I can't remember if it was one of the lawyers, kind of made the case that and they're right, you can't copyright color schemes. So I think if Houston, and by the way, the University of Houston is pushing back against the NFL, who, last year said, hey, don't wear those, uniforms because they resemble the Oilers. And when you look at they resemble them, but they're a different blue, they're a different red, they're different shades. I just think what the NFL, and mainly though the Adams family, I think they just relied on nobody's willing to push back. What I really wish would be is if the Texans would push them back, and then the NFL work behind the scenes and be like, look, guys, to the Adams family, you won. Okay. You kept the team. You moved it. You at this point, we're 32 years? Is it 32 years since they moved?
No, they moved after the 96 season. So it was
34 years. Wait,
no, 20. It was
20,
they moved. Yeah, so it's 27, 28.
27. Sorry, I'm bad at carrying the one. But point is you've won. Okay, let Houston have their stuff back. The Titans don't carry any of that anymore. They have a little bit of the baby blue. They have a little bit of the red, but they're more predominant dark blue now. Let Houston have their freaking colors back. Quit being an ass about it. It's just my personal opinion on that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously everybody has a price. I'm pretty sure they can negotiate something.
And I thought it was really, really it was really shitty how they wore Houston's colors against the Texans. There's a way that can be fun. Like if it was a better breakup, that could be fun. How great you weren't, but that was pure. That's one of the. I love the fact that the Texans beat them that day because that was just pure spite. And I'm all for spite, and you're all for spite. You're a spiteful man. Noah hates the world. He pretends he doesn't, but if Noah could live the world, he'd be Darth Vader. He would even take being burnt and not having the high ground just to get to be Vader. But you've got to admit that was pretty petty, not in like the fun way.
It's funny that the third Star Wars, everybody just talks about that one scene.
You had the high ground.
I mean, arguably that was the best scene of the whole movie. But
I hate you. Sorry, I love that. I watched Phantom Menace the other day, on May 4th, because I didn't really want to watch generic Star Wars, and I'm not a fan of the prequel, and I keep being told how it's not really that bad. Yeah, it is.
I can't believe you spent any time watching it on May the 4th. A
love
holy day to us Star Wars fans.
Dude, we got cookies for my lady. We enjoyed it very much. I will say this. The actual movie in of itself is not as bad as I remember. It is the plot point of what makes a Jedi. That's where it just like, really, George, why did you had a religion ness thing? Don't give a reason. Don't give a reason. No, it's because he got too much food in his blood. Wait, what? Anyway,
that wasn't it. But I mean, maybe he could. I don't know.
I mean, where do you think midichlorians come from? The larva of flies. That'd have been awesome. By the way, before we hit over into the Dallas Cowboys, I do want to take a moment to thank Manscaped. Go online to manscape.com. Use our code OutDrank The Coverage, ODTC. You get 20% off, of your order and free shipping. You are right now wearing the shirt they got us. Hang on. So one of these things, this is called the Weed Whacker. And if you know Manscaped, I thought the joke wrote itself, but no, apparently this is for your nose. Yes. But it works really awesome. I tried it. I have a bulbous nose. I will admit that. I have hair in my nose, and this actually works really good. It's real quiet. Just go right up in your nose. Takes a minute. Doesn't even hurt. You don't even feel it. Like the first time I did it, I didn't even think it worked because I didn't feel it. And then I looked at it, and there was a bunch of hair, so that works. So check that out. Also, so this is what's called, I love their names, Crop Preserver. This is ball deodorant. Now, I wasn't really expecting to like this because this is a lotion-based thing. And if you're a guy and you know your area down there, lotion-based things in the heat tend to just kind of get sticky and sweaty and just uncomfortable. This actually doesn't. It rubs really good and it's really, really nice. Noe was just telling me the other day that I smelled really good down there, and I really appreciate that. But yeah, check out Crop Preserver. Check out the Weed Whacker. Go to, again, manscape.com. Check out our code ODTC. You get 20% off, plus you get free shipping. And again, hey, raise up just a little bit to show the shirt. They gave us a great shirt. They gave us dude, the boxers are very comfortable, by the way. I checked them out this weekend. Very, very comfortable. So anyway.
I'm looking at the comments. Frank doesn't seem too happy. He could probably use some Manscaped in his life.
Frank's never happy. What's he mad about?
Maybe Houston Texan talk. I don't know.
Oh, Doug says episode 1 is still right. It really was. I'm not saying it was great. I'm just saying it wasn't as bad as I thought. That legitimately. So real quick before we get to the Cowboy stuff, I was one of the guys in 1997. Was it 97 when it came out? That
99.
99. That stood. Yeah, you're right. 99. That stood in line at my local theater in Marshall, Texas. We were going at the time. I was going to community college about 20 miles down the road. We had people that stood in line for us until we could replace them. We got in line. I was there for day one of that one. The other two, no. But the first one, I was there day one. And I remember everybody cheered. Everybody did all the right stuff. But it's just like the Roadhouse movie recently. And we'll be talking about that soon. I liked it in the moment, but literally 24 hours later, I was doing, wait a minute. Did I really like that? And so I hadn't watched it since then. This was the first time I'd watched it from beginning to end since then. I enjoyed it more than I thought I was. I still didn't like it, but it's better. I still remember that trilogy. The first one's okay. The third one apparently is supposed to be really considered really, really good. It's the second one that completely ruined all of that, in my opinion.
Look,
the second prequel, by the way, not Empire Strikes Back. Empire Strikes Back is still by far the best Star Wars movie. End of discussion.
That's my favorite only because Vader loses his crap and goes ballistic the whole movie, which I love.
No!
Yeah. I think you love episode 1, mainly because your favorite character was Jar Binks. A lot of people don't know this, and I think you need to come out and admit this. Jar Jar is your favorite. You have a bobblehead of him. Don't lie.
I do like
never told a lie.
I do like the minstrel acts of the day. Did nobody ever look at that and feel like that was just a callback to minstrel? And if people don't understand minstrel, there was a time in the world where variety shows would have an African American or two that would be we're so dumb, we're tripping all over ourselves, like Amos and Andy, those type. Didn't that feel like just a callback to that? Seriously, no, all jokes aside, that was a bad cast. And honestly, Anakin does not act well as a kid, but that's passable. You can get through that with kids. Yeah. But Jar Jar Binks truly ruins anything of what and I feel bad for the actor. This isn't on him. And I mean the actor that had to wear the outfit or the guy that did the voice. It's not on them. It was just a badly conceived character.
Yeah, I don't even know what they were thinking. I don't know what kind of drugs they were on. A lot of people might want to inquire on said drugs. But yeah, that was just a terrible casting. It was unnecessary. I know Star Wars tries to push in characters just to sell during Christmas to make money.
I think that's exactly what that was.
But I don't think that. I only think like mega fans would buy Jar Jar Binks paraphernalia just because it is a part of the franchise, so they can just have it. But that's the only market. It's a very small market.
Yeah. That's a really good point. I never thought about that. All right, so we did Houston, Texas. Let's go ahead and get into the.
As we talk about Jar Jar Binks and being a big disappointment, let's segue over to the Dallas Cowboys 2024 schedule.
Well, you and I, hang on. Sorry, I'm having some. There's about to be some major changes to the studio, and one of them I'm really excited for because I need to fix this arm. It's not working. But anyway, I think you and I have very big differences on this one right here, my friend. You seem to be more happy about this schedule than I am.
I think this is a good opportunity for us to have constructive conversations, positive talk, because this is something we disagree on. And
very much so.
And I think it would be healthy for us to just discuss it diplomatically and maturely.
So you want to fight about it? So what's up? You want to fight about it? All right. So the Dallas Cowboys schedule. I will say this: I really enjoy where they're starting at Cleveland. I love Cleveland. Of course, I have Cleveland friends but I've always liked the Browns. I love the way their uniforms, as simple as they are, they look. But I also think now this is a Dallas plus. I think you're catching Cleveland at the right time. Yes, they're going to be at home. Yes, Nick Chubb is going to be healthy, but we also understand that if Nick Chubb pulls an Adrian Peterson, it's not going to be week one. Right. I don't think Deshaun Watson is the answer for the Browns. I think that this year we learned that they're going to give up on Deshaun Watson. So I do think if you're going to beat Cleveland, it's better to play them in week one than say week 12 or week 13.
I always prefer to play what I think are good teams early in the season,
especially the first couple weeks.
Exactly, because in my opinion, and it still has held true to this day, more times than not, good teams round into form midway in the season. So around late October, early November, that's when you finally see the final version of this team. Having said that, I like that the Cowboys are playing on the road 3 out of the first 5 games. I like that they're playing the Browns and the Ravens and the Steelers to start the season. The Saints, I don't know what kind of team they're going to be. But
they're going to be the interesting one because they are with Derek Carr at quarterback. Mm-hmm. Nobody will talk about this because he doesn't go out and have 5 interception days like Jameis Winston. But I will contend the consistency of quarterback play is the same. You don't know if you're going to get Derek Carr like he did against Thanksgiving Cowboy a few years ago and threw for 342 yards and 3 touchdowns, including a couple big ones late. Or are you going to get Derek Carr of what was that 2018 Raiders that he fumbles the ball out of bounds as he's going for the game winner and the Cowboys survive. So the Saints are all over the map. Oh, and they have a terrible head coach too.
It was 2017. I already know Frank's on this chat, so he'll probably correct us. So I just wanted to make sure I said.
No, he will not acknowledge any losses by the Raiders. He will not acknowledge that they lost.
Yeah, you don't know what Derek Carr you're gonna get. I get that. It'll be in Dallas. Now here's the part. So week 3, big game against the Ravens. It's a 3:25 game Central Time on a Sunday. They turn around. They have to go to New York for a Thursday night Amazon Prime game at the Giants. And this is a weird year where we play, or the Dallas Cowboys play the Giants twice on a Thursday. Dallas Cowboys play them on the 26th of September on Amazon, and on Thanksgiving Day they play the Giants again. They played the Giants 2 years ago, also on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it looks like they've decided. So we haven't had an AFC opponent for the Cowboys since the aforementioned Raiders. Great Thanksgiving Day game, by the way. Yes, the Raiders won, but it was a fun game. That's the kind of Thanksgiving Day game you want. 35. In fact, you want to make the comparison. It kind of was like the Cowboys Oilers, except for the Raiders in 1979. The Raiders jumped out big in that one, and then the Tony Pollard had the kickoff return, and that kind of brought the game back together. In 79, the Cowboys had a 2-score lead, and then Earl Campbell had that 81-yard touchdown, and that brought them back in the game. That was a great Thanksgiving game. But my point is ever since then, it's been the Giants, the Washington, and the Giants again. So I guess they're gonna, NFC East for Thanksgiving, which I'm fine with.
So looking more at the schedule, this is the part where I'm okay with. I don't like the early bye, but I do like we play the Lions at home. That's going to be a dangerous matchup because we have the Sunday night game at Pittsburgh, and then we have a 3:25 Sunday game against the Lions in week 6. Then we have the bye. But I like that because after the bye, Dallas has a Sunday night game at San Francisco. And then the next week, another game at Atlanta with Kirk Cousins, a noon game. That part will be tricky.
Or Michael Penix Jr.
Here we go. Starting the controversy.
I'm on that now.
Speaking of San Francisco, before I finish my Cowboys speak, to me, they have the toughest schedule. And it's really not, well, I'm not going to say not fair, but
Bills.
They what?
For me, it's the Bills. We'll have our top 5 toughest schedules here later. But since you went ahead and spoiled it for yours, mine's the Bills. But I agree with you. San Francisco's in my top 5.
So the 49ers, the reason why I said they're at the top is because they're playing 4 teams that are coming off the bye. Mm-hmm. So these are teams that have 2 weeks to prepare against a very good 49ers team. Offense and defense and special teams. So there's a chance that they could lose games this season that they typically would not have lost last season. In case in point, against the Cowboys, they destroyed the Cowboys last season, and they've beaten the Cowboys in the 2021 playoffs and the 2022 playoffs as well. So despite the Cowboys number, I really think the Cowboys win this game. I think they reversed course, and they actually beat the 49ers. I think the Falcon game might be a trap game because the Cowboys typically like to look forward to the Eagle game.
Well,
and if you look at the next week, there's a home game against the Eagles. And I could definitely see the Cowboys having a letdown game at Atlanta before the Eagle game. And then after the Eagle game we'll be in studio because that'll be the November 18th Houston Texan game.
All right, so here's where my anger with this schedule goes. First off, I totally agree with you. When you look at that 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12, of course, the Eagles and Washington are division rivals. You think, even if it's just simply because Dan Quinn and a bunch of Cowboys are there, that's going to mean something. Houston's going to mean something, whether we want to pretend it doesn't or not. I think I legitimately think this is the year. And I hope when we do I always clip these, so we have these little sound bites, and I hope it clips this one. I think this is the year that Houston Texans Dallas rivalry really begins. Like, this is it.
22 years later.
22 years later. And we're actually going to talk about Houston on one of our look back top rivals, the 2000s. They do make the honorable mention. So, I mean, you've got to tip your hat when when their first game of the year against Dallas, and you beat them. And let's remember, I know that team finished 5-11, but let's remember there were a lot of people, and I don't mean Dallas people. I'm talking about NFL media that thought that Dallas team was that last chance for a Super Bowl. If Quincy Carter can figure it out on offense, everything else is in place, and it wasn't. But anyway, but it still never became a huge rivalry. I've actually been to a Houston Cowboy game, and it wasn't the biggest point of that was it was Tony Romo's first ever touchdown thrown in a regular season. He threw 2 of them to Terrell Owens late in the game. That's been the biggest moment. And so I think this, though, starts it where Dallas is going to have to start looking at Houston and being like, shit, Houston's probably going to be really good for the next 6-7 years if everything holds off. So anyway, so that plays like a division game. Then you got Washington, as you said, you've got the Giants on Thanksgiving. So from 8 to 13, that Falcon game just feels like such a trap game. But
yes.
Go ahead. You have something to say?
No, that is exactly right. To me, the Falcon game is a trap game because I think they're going to have a big win at the 49ers.
And by the way, the Falcons could come into this game at 6-2, 7-1, and it's still a trap game.
Yeah, it's just because the Cowboys have such a big high. My guess, after 2-week rest, they're going to beat the 49ers.
Especially, let's play in this world where Dallas, and I'll get to my gripe here in a minute, and I really did. This is one of the reasons why we wanted to get some of the other news out of the way, so we could talk longer on just the Cowboys schedule, because that's what we do here. If there's a way where Dallas, so I'm going in my world where Dallas goes into Detroit 3-2, and let's say you beat Detroit, you hit that bye, and then you beat San Francisco. I mean, you and I are very, very jaded about what the Cowboys are in season. Are we not? We don't trust anything they do. But if they're sitting at 3-2 at week 5, and then they beat the Lions, they beat the Niners after a bye, I could see us starting to fall for it again and start to actually believe, because you were talking about if you're 3-2 out of the Browns, the Steelers, the Ravens, the Giants, and the Saints, let's say you beat, I'm just going to say the Browns, my pick right now. They beat the Browns, they beat the Saints, they lose to the Ravens, they beat the Giants, and they lose to Steelers just because. That's just when they go into to Pittsburgh. I know they had the Ezekiel Elliott win a few years ago, but usually when they go into Pittsburgh, they kind of struggle. Remember the Tony Romo 3 interception game? But anyway.
I mean, the funny part is you're saying they'll beat the Giants, but then they have 10 days off, and then they play the Steelers.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And you still say they'll lose on Sunday Night Football. Okay.
I don't pay attention quite as much to that yet. 4 weeks into the season, the 10-day, I mean, it's nice. Don't get me wrong, but it's not so let me go and get to my gripe. So my gripe with the Cowboys schedule, I think that they have been done dirty. And I don't mean like purposely. I'm just talking about, so a few years ago, for whatever reason, the NFL came out and said, hey, Detroit and Dallas, they get that benefit of the 10 games or 10 days after Thanksgiving, and we're going to stop doing that. That's an unfair advantage. I think that sucks. Those two teams were willing to be your Thanksgiving game back when nobody else would be, because they tried it for a few years without them and nobody liked it. And Noe, I don't think the NFL in 2024 is the NFL in 2024 without the success of the Thanksgiving games. And that is including the Lions, who have traditionally sucked, year by year, but still their Thanksgiving games, you had some of the great, you had the Lawrence Taylor interception return. You had them in Green Bay last year when they were finally the better team, and Green Bay just ate their sack lunch and the pass rush. So I don't like that they're getting this, basically getting knocked. They play on Monday night, November 18th, they play the Texans. They then get a short week and play the Washington Commanders, not only on Sunday, but at noon on Sunday, the earliest you could play on Sunday. And then 4 days later, they get the Giants. You're talking about 3 teams. One of them should be good. One of them will suck. One of them we don't know yet. I don't think that that's fair. I think that they're putting this whole Thanksgiving thing and kind of giving them a crappy schedule. Now, usually they do it after Thanksgiving. This year, they're doing it before Thanksgiving.
I agree. It's a bad 3-game stretch, but again,
that stretch could decide the season.
I like that it's later in the season when you can plan for it now. That's the part I like about it. I think they can, because they have 8 days off from the Eagle game to the Texan game. where they can plan how the next 3 weeks will go. They've already played the Giants. They haven't played the Commanders yet. The Texans game obviously is going to be the marquee one. It's a tough stretch of games. I'm not going to lie to you, but I like the fact that if they can get out of there 1-2 or 2-1 at best, I think they'll at least lose one of those games. They'll get so many days off from Thanksgiving to Monday Night Football, December 9th, when they play the Bengals. They finish 2-2 in this 4-game gauntlet. I'll be very happy. And I think they can do it. I think that's very realistic. It's going to suck for a 10-day span when they're just like with the Texans. They're playing, December 15th to December 25th. They're playing 3 games in 10 days. Yeah. The Cowboys will be playing 3 games in 10 days from November 18th to November 28th. But you know what? 2 of those are at home. And I'm okay with that. They can plan. If they want to be a championship team, they can plan for it now. The good thing is they've already played the Giants at this point. They play the Giants week 4 on a Thursday night, like we mentioned earlier. I think this is not the worst case. It's going to suck, but I think if they can make it out of there 1-2 or 2-1, if they win one of those games, that's a win to me. They just got to take care of the rest of the season.
Yeah, and again, a lot of that depends on where they're hitting. And this is one of the other things when I talk about the Cowboy schedule. For this year alone, I don't see that stretch. And to be fair, last year they fumbled part of that stretch when they lost to the Arizona Cardinals, though they did, then right the ship and get fine after that. But I don't see that stretch where I see 4 out of 5 wins on paper. I see stretches that could be. I really like the first 5 games. And again, I say the Steelers, but I actually, depending on where Dallas and them are, I think Dallas is probably still a better team. I'm just going off of there's no way Dallas is going 5-0. We wish, but that ain't happening. And so I'm just trying to find losses. I do think that first stretch, I could see a stretch where they're 5-0 going into the Lions game.
So, yeah.
I really don't think they will be, because I still think the Ravens win that game. I'm not any Baltimore fan. I'm not. To me, still 5 games in, perfect world is 4-1.
Hey, the Ravens last year were one of the best constructed teams. They lost their defensive coordinator. They lost 2 of their top running backs. They added Derrick Henry. The Cowboys are still suspect on the running game, or the rush defense, excuse me. I could definitely see Baltimore being run heavy, especially, with Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. And don't forget, they have Zay Flowers. They have talent at receiver too. And they got, I was about to say Todd Heap.
Cobb Heap.
They have Isaiah Likely. and
we don't know.
And Mark Andrews at tight end. So
yeah, we don't know what Likely will do now. Apparently, they're looking at using more of the 22, which is 2 tight ends, which I think is brilliant. You want to talk about a team that I don't understand, even when Greg Roman was the offensive coordinator, why they weren't doing more 2 tight end, because we can talk about what Lamar Jackson does well and doesn't do well, and that's fine. But one of the things he does well is throw inside the hashes. That's why Mark Andrews is an all-pro tight end. So I think them using Isaiah Likely multiple times is going to just make them even better.
Oh, 100% agree there. But the best part about playing the Ravens for the Cowboys this season is that they play them in week 3. We still don't know. They're good for a bad loss here and there early in the season.
Oh, the Ravens?
The Ravens, yes.
Oh, yeah, the Ravens. Again, I think we get, we get lost into the whole idea. We forget that with salary cap, even the great teams are 1 player away from just being average. The Ravens I think Dallas loses that game, but in no way do I feel like it's like San Francisco last year where they just absolutely get just, I think it's a close game. I think it's at home. Yeah, it's at home. So, that'll play. It's weird because the last time I really think of Ravens in Dallas, of course, is Texas Stadium's final night in 2008.
Yeah, and then I think we beat the Ravens,
2012?
2012? No, I think, was it 2012? Maybe.
No, we lost the one in 2020. That's the one that was pandemic. That was right in the middle of right before oh shoot, what's his name? The quarterback that God dang it.
2012?
No, 2020.
For the Ravens.
No, the Cowboys. After
no.
Dak got hurt, they went through a couple. Who was the guy that ended up there and actually played well at the end?
It wasn't Kitna.
No, 2020, dude. Kitna was coaching in high school by 2020.
I said it wasn't Kitna. Gosh, get off my back, sir.
Red Rifle.
Dalton
came back from the look. You and I have talked about this before. I'm not kidding when I say this. If Washington doesn't knock Andy Dalton out of that game for 4 games, the 2020 Cowboys probably make the playoffs. When you look at when he finally got back and he was healthy and he was playing good, that's when they upset Minnesota and things like that. But in that game, Andy Dalton was still out against the Ravens, and it was terrible. It was ugly. It was like 24. Huh?
Oh, I remember that because that game got pushed because Lamar
he got COVID.
Yeah.
All the Cowboy fans were like, wait a minute, wait, what? And it was played like on a Tuesday or a Wednesday.
Yeah, that was crazy. Oh, I got late breaking news.
Okay.
Wide receiver Devontae Parker announces his retirement from the NFL. That is late breaking major news.
Hang on, so where's the major news at? He's another one, man. He's another one at wide receiver, and there's so many of them. And this kind of goes to the point you and I were talking about before about why wide receivers don't get more like respect Hall of Fame wise. I think part of it's because you've got guys like him that there is no reason why Devontae Parker was not a 10,000-yard career guy. But for whatever reason, it just never worked out after a couple really good years.
Yeah. Yeah. What could have been? Like, I had high hopes on him, but yeah, he just didn't live up to it.
All right. So looking at this schedule.
Okay.
And look, folks, it's freaking May. We're going to be saying this 1,000 times, and it's going to change 1,000 times, and they're not locked in until we do our preseason preview show. But right now, looking at this schedule, all things remain the same. What is the Cowboys' record, and do they make the playoffs?
Their record is 11-6, and yes, they make the playoffs as a wild card.
11-6. Now, see, if they win, if they go 11-6, which I think that's possible, I think they win the division by a couple games. I think the NFC East at the top, everybody, the Cowboys and the Eagles both take a step back, but they're still playoff teams. I think it's a 9-8 schedule. They make the wild card and go from there.
I'm trying to think of who's going to win the division. My wild card is going to be the Commanders, just because of the changes that have happened.
You're shitting me, right?
And some years, changes like this turn into a 1-year positive turnaround.
So that's a really good point, because that's kind of where we keep telling people we are with Houston and even Detroit to it a little bit. Like, you've got to do it 2 years before you're solidified, because we've seen the 1-year wonders. And I even think Green Bay could fit that. And they're just mad because they beat Dallas. No, I'm just saying, like, Jordan Love was amazing, but there were also times in the season where Jordan Love was terrible. So why do we always assume that that person that's really erratic all of a sudden only becomes great? I think there's a world where next year the Packers are still 9-8, trying to make the playoffs and a good team, because again, we go back to that's what the NFL wants. But yeah, you're right. The 1-year wonder, I agree with that.
Dude, Brett Favre, he suffered, I think, 3 straight 9-7 seasons before they broke through in 95 with 11-5 record. So give Jordan Love some time. He has the talent. And I think they're trying to build something around him. They're trying to build it the Packer way, which is through the draft. They don't really make many major free agent moves. The ones they do are kind of memorable. Like, they had the first big one with Reggie White in '93 when he left Philadelphia to come to Green Bay. But yeah, they're a team that's on the come up. I think they'll with Josh Jacobs and A.J. Dillon, I think they might be more run heavy, but that might set up some good play action. Who knows what's going to happen with the Packers? They're a big question mark to me, but I like the future of them. They're young everywhere, and I think that might be a good thing since they made the playoffs. All those young talent, they have the experience from a first round playoff win.
Yeah.
almost beating the team that represented your conference in the Super Bowl. So yeah, I like it. And right now you put up the Thursday Night Football 2024 schedule on Amazon Prime.
Okay, so I just want to go ahead and point out, I want to bring up this schedule because it is very, very, very obvious that Monday Night Football wants to make this work. Because look at this schedule. This is a Sunday Night Football schedule most years.
Yeah, I mean, I like the division rival matchups.
Look how many division rival games there are.
It's almost every week. Almost. Like the last week is not Seattle and Chicago, but almost every other week. I'm looking at it right now. I think it's week 7 is the Broncos and the Saints.
Which is a more of a like, hey, that guy used to coach with New Orleans, now he's with Denver, that kind of thing. The Texans.
And it will be in New Orleans too. Yeah. So Sean Payton goes to New York. Oh, that'll be good.
Yes, that's my point. And so
I'm kind of salivating right now. Just
and as a Cowboy fan, usually your Thursday night game was going to be either against a crappy NFC team or an AFC team that was either good or maybe not. This year they're getting. I like the fact that Dallas is getting that Thursday night game out of the way early because they're going to have the one at Thanksgiving as well. But yeah, you started off, man. Week 2 is where Thursday night starts on Amazon. I mean, you've got a marquee matchup. Now it might be kind of I think it's smart getting the Bills and the Dolphins and the Patriots and the Jets early because I'm still not sure. The Bills, the Dolphins, and the Patriots will really be good when it comes down to it at the end of the day. We'll have to see, but getting them early is great. You get Dallas and the Giants early. At worst, you've got the Giants at 0-2. You've got the Buccaneers and Falcons, which I think could be all these games. I'm impressed with what they did with Thursday Night Football this year.
Well, Raheem Morris is the Atlanta Falcon coach. He used to coach the Tampa Bay Bucks. So
there's
a little bit of storyline there.
Yeah, but it's really just more important that they're a division game to me.
But you know what? Halloween night, Houston at the Jets. I wonder if they're going to do something very funky and special because it's Halloween.
Well, that might have to be a watch party game, even if we do it like we do these, where you're at your house. That might have to be a watch party game.
And then week 13, Black Friday. Raiders at Chiefs. You remember the game last year on Christmas Day? The Raiders.
Weird game, dude. That was one of the weirdest games. And it was because if you remember, so the way we do things here is like we go to my family on Christmas Eve and then we do Christmas and then we drive back up to Dallas Fort Worth and then, we do stuff with her family because they do it later in the day on Christmas Day. And I just remember watching that on my phone on the way home and just like, how are the Raiders winning this game? But it was such a weird game, dude.
It was one of those games where Patrick Mahomes lost it for them, which is weird to say because the Raiders just scored touchdowns on defense. Like they played a great game defensively. Their offense was not good, but
keep talking real quick. Hang on.
Okay. So yeah, the Raiders win that Christmas Day game. I think that was the last loss the Chiefs had for the 2023 season on their way to winning another Super Bowl, their third one in the Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes regime. But yeah, that was just a very weird game. I was very happy for the Vegas Raiders because Terry and I have always been Raider fans. Just like the mystique, just like the history, the wacky owner, Al Davis, and his son Mark. And we're also looking forward to seeing what Antonio Pierce does as head coach. Because they lost Josh Jacobs, but you think they're going to still right the ship, even though they have Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell at quarterback. They might take a step back. They might have a 5-year plan. They might want to get draft capital and just take a step back. But again, that doesn't make sense when you have Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers. So,
okay,
but yeah, I was talking noise about you, sir. We have a Thanksgiving 2023 rematch with Green Bay at Detroit on December 5th in Week 14.
Wow, I just realized that you're right. They're going back to back with them.
Yeah. So
hang on, let me hang on. You're talking that. Let me put. I actually have the holiday schedule. Oh no, that's the Houston Texans. Hang on. I have the holiday schedule. Here we go. The holiday schedule.
Halloween. Yeah, we already talked about that.
Oh
Thanksgiving.
no. It's Thanksgiving. It's Thanksgiving's the Lions and the Bears.
Well, yeah, but on Amazon Prime for Thursday night,
sorry. Okay,
it's a rematch of last year's Thanksgiving game where Green Bay destroyed Detroit, like you mentioned earlier.
And I'll give us credit. I feel you and I mean, this is the whole reason we have the confidence to have a show. I feel you and I tend to kind of know what's about to happen. And both of us felt Green Bay was going to win that game. And we both felt Green Bay was going to win that game because of their pass rush. And lo and behold, if that's not exactly how it happened in that game.
And Detroit's lack of pass rush.
And that's actually what killed Detroit against Dallas. I mean, Dak Prescott was able to, on that very fun game, was able just to sit back all day long. But anyway, so let's flipping over to the holiday schedule. Sorry, I thought that's what you were doing. As we talked about the Texans and the Jets, which that's kind of weird that they're acknowledging Halloween. Like, okay.
I'm just curious what funky uniforms they're going to be wearing that night.
I don't think there'll be anything funky. I think we'll get the Texans in their Houston alternate, and you'll get the Jets in their white with the green helmet. I don't think they'll do anything like. I like the Thanksgiving schedule, by the way. I think the Thanksgiving schedule is fun. I will say this though: if you're gonna, again, I'm gonna go back to, if you're gonna give the Cowboys and the Lions division rivals that matter, why are you then doing this random Dolphins versus Green Bay? Matchup wise, it sounds good, but I kind of missed it when it was the Saints and the Falcons on this. I kind of felt they had something that they should have stuck with there, Saints and Falcons, and that be, but I like the Thanksgiving schedule though overall.
Hey, back in the day, Matty Ice and Drew Brees, they would have some epic games, Saints and Falcons. So yeah, I agree with you there. But I mean, like you have to think about it from 2023 perspective. Dolphins were the number 2 team in the AFC East. Green Bay was the number, 2 team in the NFC North. Miami Dolphins almost had the 2 seed until they crapped the bed in the season finale against the Buffalo Bills. Packers beat the Cowboys in the wild card. They almost beat the 49ers in the divisional. These teams are kind of on the come up, especially with Miami Dolphins getting Odell Beckham Jr.
Wait. No, I'm not kidding. You really think the Dolphins are considered on the come up? Because I feel like the Dolphins are kind of on the, you've got to prove it this year or we're tearing things down, at least at quarterback. Because Tua is about to be up for a big contract. I think the Dolphins are on the like they're on the same plane. And I don't mean that's a bad thing. I think they've got to prove this year that they're more than just a playoff contender. They need to prove they're an AFC conference contender, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that part I agree with, just because of the letdown they had the last 2 years in the postseason. They added Odell Beckham. They lost a lot of talent on defense. They acquired some. They lost their defensive coordinator to the Eagles.
And they lost their defensive coordinator, a guy that is considered, one of the most respected names in the last 25 years. And apparently both sides agree that it just didn't work. So is that just a one-off, or is Vic Fangio about to be like Nolan was and like Monty Kiffin was when he became the Cowboys defensive coordinator? Is the game passing him by? Because it kind of felt like, at least to Miami players and schemes, they felt the game had passed him by. We heard about Ramsey and Howard kind of on Twitter talking about hey, now you finally get to be free because you're away from him. So
I don't know, man, because typically with Vic Fangio, his year 2 teams do better than his year 1 teams.
I just think Miami, I think because Miami feels they have to win it now, I think and I'm not saying they made a bad decision. Maybe it just wasn't working out. But it didn't feel like they gave Vic that year 2 that's usually where he shine. Some defensive coordinators shine in year 1. Wade Phillips is amazing in year 1. What's his name? The brother.
Ryan?
Yeah, not the one that was the Cowboy defensive coordinator, Rob. Rob is amazing in year one. Vic Fangio is more of let me build the framework in year one, and then year two, we're going to figure it out. I do think the Dolphins, whatever reason that didn't work out, kind of gave up too early, unless it was maybe on his side. Maybe
I mean, they were kind of like the Cowboys last year, where they were winning games against inferior opponents and then struggling against good to great teams.
Yeah.
When they played each other, you kind of could see it because both teams were they did well and then they kind of struggled a little bit. And it was kind of an evenly matched game. And then the Dolphins won on a last second kick. I'm kind of shooting myself there because I lost in one fantasy league because I didn't start Jason Sanders when I probably should have. Because he had all those field goals in that game, and that was the reason why I lost.
I will say this: you and I, when it comes to fantasy, are so pragmatic. Like I will play a guy against Dallas if Dallas's defense is going to give him points, but I try not to. And I have lost more games when I should have because I just, because there is a point. You're rooting for your fantasy or your team in which and so now I will be fair. In some years, I'd rather win in my fantasy because I'm doing really well. And, I don't want to complete that. I remember us talking about that the week after. And I was like, dude, I know it sucks, but I don't blame you because what would you be like? God, yeah. It's such a weird feeling. It really is, though. It's such a weird feeling.
So, yeah, agreed. So the Christmas game last year was the Raiders at Kansas City. This year is going to be a Black Friday game, and I like that. I like their color contrast. I think it'll work well on national TV, and of course, Taylor Swift will probably be there supporting her man.
First off, I love the Christmas games. I don't know how Netflix will do it. We'll see. I'm assuming they'll probably, this isn't the biggest mistake broadcast, especially new networks make, is trying to reinvent the wheel. Don't reinvent the wheel. Just get some good broadcasters in, get some experienced behind the scenes people to run the presentation and the cameras and stuff. But boy, when you look at that Christmas Day, that should
Here we go.
Feels like we're going to see a couple of these matchups in about a month in the playoffs, doesn't it? Because I'm calling it right now. I think 3 of the 4 for sure make it. And I'm telling you, folks, I don't know why. I feel like Russell Wilson or Justin Fields, whoever ends up being the starter, it's going to work in Pittsburgh. In fact, you might even have a situation where they both work and they have to make a really tough decision next year. But I don't know. Something just tells me.
It's not a tough decision.
What, Justin Fields first?
You go for the youth.
Yeah, but they're going with Russell Wilson. He's starting at least the first 5 games.
I love that Netflix is getting in the game with this because next year Netflix is going to be hosting WWE Raw as well,
and they started all this with the F1 thing.
Yeah, so F1 blew up with Drive to Survive about 7-8 years ago. So now it's just like Netflix is trying to get in the game of live coverage of things. Christmas Day football games is one. Wrestling is going to be another next year.
Yep.
Formula One. So yeah, this is pretty good.
Here's why I trust Netflix on this, because no matter what, first off, over the last 5 years, especially since the pandemic, everybody's been trying to bury Netflix and they just keep getting better. But what I respect about Netflix is, like, 2 years ago, there was rumors that they were going to try for the F1 rights, because you said they have the behind the scenes show that's really good. It's really opened up a lot of American people to F1 and now watch it. But they also realized they tried to do they ran a bunch of things. They were like, we're not ready to do live streaming. We want to get that right before we do it. I don't know. I like that. And that something tells me that they're going to figure it out. And for the record, I absolutely love Christmas Day games. I love in NFL. Again, we talked about it earlier. NFL, the reason the NFL is the NFL right now is partly because of Thanksgiving games. If you think I'm crazy, you don't understand whether they were good, bad, indifferent, how much people, when they think of Thanksgiving, they think of football. And I have no problem with them doing that on Christmas. I think it's a brilliant move. Again, I think now, in fact, it amazes me some people are complaining about, well, why do you want to have football on Christmas? My response is, why the frick do you not want to have football on Christmas? Like, I just think that's awesome.
Same thing with Thanksgiving. It is, everybody's at home. This is why it works. Everybody's at home. You're going to have the TV on. Whether you're watching a Macy's Thanksgiving parade or you're watching football, it doesn't matter. You're going to have the TV on Christmas Day. You're opening up gifts, drinking your hot chocolate.
Yep.
Some of you health nuts will, pour some chocolate protein shake or a powder in your hot chocolate. Whatever. You're going to be at home watching TV. Why not have football on?
I have a studio dog that's just broke in. Intern Abby, she's at the feet of me. She's trying to say hi to everybody. No, you're right, I think it's a blast. And I think in 5 years, everybody's going to be like, "Wait a minute, why hasn't there been more Christmas Day games?" I remember Texas. I remember Dallas played the Titans on Christmas Day. That was pretty ugly way back in the day.
Yes,
yeah, that was back when Dallas sucked. Hey, Abby, no, not the camera.
Now, is Studio Abby being a good girl? That's what the fans are wanting.
Trying to mess with the camera. It's okay. Anyway, all right, so let's go to the Monday Night Football schedule because we talked about the Thursday night schedule, and you and I both feel that they've really pumped that up. In fact, I would make the case that the Thursday night schedule might rival the Sunday night schedule. I think the Monday night schedule, I think we're seeing the Troy Aikman, Joe Buck effect of now we want to see really good matchups because, and what I like about Monday night, they're doing such a good job of you're getting some NFC versus NFC. You're getting a couple division matchups, but you're also getting the Texans versus Cowboys, the Bengals versus Cowboys, the Bucks versus Kansas. You're getting a lot of these cross-conference games that are interesting, and I think they find a great home here. And I also like the fact that they're adding, 2 weeks where they have multiple games. And they might even – actually, they're going to add a third week because the last week of the season is going to be a doubleheader, which will probably be Saturday and Monday like they did last year.
Well, right now it's 4 weeks.
Oh, yeah, that's right, because I forgot December 16th. You're right. They're doing 4 games there too.
So this piggybacks off of, the theory of economics. Competition is the best thing you can ever have.
Yep.
ESPN, ABC, Disney, the whole Walt Disney conglomerate, they're competing with Amazon, which is competing with NBC, and which is, they're vying for the shield, the NFL's love, to bless them with great quality matchups. Now, we don't know how these matches are going to turn out, obviously, because
you never do. Some of these, there's going to be at least 3 or 4 that just don't turn out good.
Which is, that's just par for the course. That's just going to happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, it looks like on paper, based off the 2023 win percentage, these are all really good matchups from the beginning of the season to the end of the season. And I really hope the Lions and 49ers are healthy because that December 30th matchup, that is very juicy.
Oh, what if you go into a game, that game where they're playing for the number 1 seed and they can't throttle down? I also want to go back. I legitimately cannot remember the last time Dallas was on 2 Monday night games. Last year they were on the Monday night broadcast twice, but one of them was a Saturday game. I don't remember the last time Dallas was. It would have been early 2000s, late 90s, because then Dallas got bad. So you basically only showed them once a year on Monday night. And then when Monday night got moved to ESPN fully, the NFL throttled back their great matchups, and you would only get Dallas one time. And it would usually be a good matchup, but it was one time. So this year, not only are they 2 times, but they're 2 times in less than 4 weeks. That's an odd little thing there, but it's Houston, Dallas, Bengals, Dallas, 2 really good matchups.
Last time the Cowboys were on 2 Monday night football games was 2006.
There you go. Was that? Oh my God. No,
Yep.
no,
Yep.
no,
Yep.
no.
Yep.
And you know what I'm talking about? Mark Brunell, 13-0 Dallas.
Oh, no. That was 05.
Okay. Ooh, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, what 2006? What were the 2?
God, why would you ask me that question?
I'm not looking it up. That's you and I do what other. I don't. One of the things that frustrates me about no matter what genre I'm listening to is these people that record shows and then they won't they'll go, well, what's the question? You literally can look online and tell. So the last time that was 2006, that would have been the Bill Parcells. That makes sense.
His last season.
Yeah, when they lost to the Seattle Seahawks in the playoffs. I don't have the dates.
So October 23rd, they lost to the Giants. That was the last game Drew Bledsoe started. As you recall, Tony Romo came into that game.
That's right.
And then on Christmas night, Monday Night Football,
they lose to Philadelphia 23-7. That was when the offense had went stagnant. Was it Dittmer that was the quarterback for the Eagles then? They should not have beat Dallas, and they beat them pretty bad.
It was Jeff Garcia.
Jeff Garcia. I knew, but I don't even think he was the starter at that point, though. I think he was
not for the whole season. He was the backup, but they did go on a semi-impressive playoff run where they beat the Giants. I think they won the division that season at 10-6, and they beat the Giants 23-20 in wildcard weekend, and they had a close loss to the Saints in the divisional round.
Yeah, that's when that's right. So Garcia, but they were 5-6, and Reed put in Garcia to start the rest of the way, and they went on a 6-game win or 5-game winning 7-game winning streak. Golly, they really. I don't remember them being that hot, but I do remember that just how bad that Dallas played in that game. And again, that's why when you go back and you look at that season, people really, really, really 1,000% overrate what happened in that playoff game. I'm not saying what happened in that playoff game wasn't like, oh my God, crazy the way it ended and all that, but this was not a really good Dallas team.
Yeah, it wasn't really one. It was Parcells last season. They were kind of average throughout the whole season. I mean, they finished 9-7, but they ended up making the playoffs. They almost beat Seattle in the playoffs too. So,
it was a great game. Again, we all know about, but my whole point is people act like Seattle winning that game, like Dallas was, destined to make the Super Bowl. That wasn't it at all. They were, everybody thinks that Parcells quit because of the game and how it ended. Parcells quit because he was just tired, and also his divorce thing was over, and he paid all the money he owed his ex-wife. That's the whole reason Bill Parcells became the Dallas Cowboys head coach, folks.
I get that. What was I going to say? I don't really feel that was. It wasn't really a strong year in the NFC in 2006. The Chicago Bears with Sexy Rexy Grossman went 13-3, all defense, all special teams, no offense. Let's be honest there.
Have you ever looked at Rex Grossman? We don't talk about it as much as we used to. We never really did like pitching wins and losses, but that does get talked about. Have you ever seen what Rex Grossman's winning and losing percentage is?
Oh, I'm pretty sure it's high.
Let me pull it up. It's going to blow your mind. It's not.
He was on some great teams.
Yes, and it's not great, but when you think of Rex Grossman, there's no way I'm thinking that son of a bitch is 25-22 as a starter with a Super Bowl and 3 playoff appearances.
But I mean, because Dak can't make it, why don't we just sign Rex Grossman?
You know what? There are about 1,000 Facebook Dallas Cowboy fans that just said that before you said it. Why don't we get a Rex Grossman? That'll work. We're going to have that talk. Well, you and I have been really deep into that. One of the great things about how we've been doing this historical show is it's allowed us to kind of realize some of the things that people, how they judge players and stuff in the past is probably kind of bullshit, and that's one of them. But anyway, let's go back to the Monday night game. What's your favorite Monday night matchup? I kind of like the first one, to be honest with you.
The first one's great, I have to admit. I think week 3, the second one, Washington-Cincinnati, might be one of the better uniform games. But yeah, I mean, outside of Texans and Cowboys in week 11, I almost want to say week 14, Bengals and Cowboys. It's just a really stacked lineup for Monday Night Football this season.
That's a good point. It's amazing to me how many teams, like the Buccaneers, play within 4 weeks twice on Monday night. Yep. The Cowboys play within 4 weeks twice on Monday night. San Diego plays within 5 weeks. It's weird how, like, Like Atlanta gets one in the first part of the year and then all the way at the end. That's kind of how Dallas did last year. Because if I want to mistake, wasn't the first game actually technically on Monday night? Yeah, that was the Giants was Monday night, wasn't it? Last year. It wasn't
Sunday night. Sunday night.
You sure?
Well, you're gonna make me look up 2023.
Okay, so one of the last 2 years, I'm pretty sure last year. Anyway, point is usually you're getting within two, and then like Atlanta's all spread out. The Eagles are the Eagles only on there once? Oh, the Eagles are only on there once.
Sunday Night Football against the Giants.
Okay, the Dolphins are on. That must have been the year before then. The Dolphins are on there twice. I don't think anybody's on there 3 times this year, and I think that's smart. I think that I still would. I still kind of wish Monday night would be the game where you've got matchups against teams who might be good and who might not be good. Like the second game on October 21st, Chargers Cardinals. I could see that being where both of those teams are good, both of those teams are bad, or only the Chargers are good and the Cardinals are bad.
Because we both kind of feel that the Jim Harbaugh-led Chargers are going to actually be pretty good and run heavy.
I don't. I think they're going to be bad. They're going to trade Justin Herbert. I've told you that. Justin Herbert is not a Charger for the rest of his career.
You told me that, and I still think the Chargers are going to be really good this season as a run
heavy. That'd be awesome if they are. If he pulls a 2002, well, you can't really pull a 2002 Dallas because you don't have Quincy Carter, but you got Justin Herbert. But what if he's got Justin Herbert down to like 175 yards a game? That's like his average, and they're winning every game 21-17, 17-16. I don't know if LA will accept that as a winner.
Well, because it's LA, because you want glitz and glamour.
Exactly.
That's why the USC Trojans were so popular back in the day. They were very glitzy, glamorous. They were very exciting to watch. And all the LA-based teams were already out of the state. So, yeah, they want entertainment. That's why the Lakers were called the Showtime Lakers. They were entertaining. They were very high offensive oriented. They were just a great team. Like LA, SoCal, they need entertainment of some sort.
Well, let me ask you. Like, the 2002 season was fun, but it was ugly. Do you would you be happy as a personal fan? Would you be happy if your team, whether it be Dallas, whatever team you pick, if they won, but they won in a way that you didn't enjoy watching, would you still be happy they won? Because I feel like that, the first year, of course, you won a Super Bowl, especially if you haven't had one in a while. But if that's how if they played a way you don't like and they won consistently, I don't know if I would enjoy that.
I would, as long as they win.
See, I think that's where, and I think, and you and I've talked about this before. I always bring up the 2001 Big 12 championship game. I go to a game where Texas should win; they're the favorite. Upsets had happened to where if they win the game, they're in the national title game, and they lost. But my God, it was such a fun game. It was 38-37. They were down 21 points. They almost come back. And I kind of realized then that, I would be happy if Dallas won a Super Bowl last year, no matter how they won it. But if they then turned into a team that was like the 2000 Ravens, I would not enjoy that. I would still watch, and I would still be happy they would win, but I would not enjoy watching that week in and week out. A team that might still be winning, but they're winning in a way that I'm not entertained by it.
I mean, it'd be like the 2012 Cowboys, but with more wins.
What do you mean?
Just ugly games every week, all close.
I don't mind close. I don't ever want a team that I'm rooting for in football. We're talking football because I don't want a team that I'm rooting for in the NFL to be the top team in the league in defense, but like the second or third worst team in the offense, but they still win 14-13. I will not enjoy that. I will revel in their wins, and because we get paid to talk about it, I would talk about it. But me personally, as a fan, I would not enjoy that at all. 1 year, you're fine. You get your Super Bowl. But if that became their identity, if they became the 2000 Ravens or the 99 Tampa Bay or whatever, I would not like watching the Cowboys play at that point.
I would be nervous every week but I'm always nervous watching the
No,
Cowboys.
no. I'm talking about I would not enjoy it. Like it would not be aesthetically pleasing to me. At that point, I wouldn't care if they're winning or losing. I wouldn't be nervous. Or I get your point, though. I am too. But I'm just talking about in this world, if they're just a terrible offense and they have to win every game 10-9. I legitimately might stop watching them. I wouldn't stop watching football. Don't get me wrong. I would still follow them, but that's not the type. I've got to be entertained and win. I think maybe that's why when they lose, I'm still at this age in my life, and they've won 5 Super Bowls. They've won what I call 4 of them when I was alive. I would rather be entertained and they win. I would pick that over just winning.
Man, that is a good discussion. That probably might require a longer discussion, to be honest with
because
you.
you could go back like hockey. Would you be happy to watch a team that wins titles and they win like 3-2, 4-3, or would you? But could you watch a team that won like the old Dallas Stars used to be, the Trap and all that? I'm at the age now where I've got to enjoy what I'm watching. Winning and losing, because it doesn't really impact my personal life. Winning and losing for the Dallas Cowboys to me now is not always as important as them being a fun team to watch and winning. I don't want to be a fun team to watch and lose, but if I got to pick, I don't want to be bored. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's the justification Red Raider fans have felt about their football team since 2000. So.
Hang on, I got one more thing. And I don't disagree with them. Like I would rather be 7-5 and fun to watch than be 9-2 and boring.
This is where you and I disagree. Because I would rather have the W's.
And again, for me, you and I have talked about this 1,000 times. I think I'm at that point now where for me, entertainment is as important as winning, and not that I want them to lose. And you know that, you've seen me. We joke in the moment. I'm like, every team sucks. As soon as Dallas punts the first time, this is the worst team that Dallas has had. I'm like that. I get that. But also when I look back, I go, like I'm not happy that they lost to the Packers, but mainly because how they lost. If they'd have lost to the Packers 37-35, I would be like, man, that sucks. But good God, that was a blast to watch. That's how maybe that's why I like with 2016 Packers. I was just telling you that. Like I went back and watched the whole game and I thoroughly just enjoyed watching that game. Yeah, it sucked that Aaron Rodgers, throws to Jared Cook on 3rd and 30 and they pull a game out their ass. But the totality of the game, it was just really, really, as a fan who knew the results, I was still just enjoying the game. But anyway, let's finish out with the international schedule because I like the international schedule except for 2 things. I think all international games as of now should only be AFC versus NFC. I don't like Green Bay and Philadelphia playing week 1 on the road, not because I think that actually makes it easier for them, but because that game right there could end up deciding which one of these teams or both of the teams their playoff seeding. I don't like that being in Brazil. I don't like that being in Mexico, England. The important games should still be at their home stadiums.
I mean, I get from the NFL perspective, they're just trying to. This is a way to broaden the interest. They'll never have a game. They'll never have a team in Brazil in the NFL, but they want to expand interest, which I'm fine with. Glad they have a Brazil game. I'm glad they have a Germany game. So I might be going to one of these 5 games in the future. I don't know. I will let you know in the future.
No. You got to at least tell me which one.
I don't know yet. That's what I'm saying.
You're just thinking about personally making a trip to one of these games?
Yeah, it won't be Brazil, but it'll be one of the 3 England games or the Germany game. But I'll let you know further down in the season.
But is this just to go to the games or other things, and the game happens to be being played?
Oh, definitely just for the games. But obviously, if I've never been in London, I've never been to Munich, so I would definitely, I think the Germany game is not during Wurstfest or Oktoberfest, so I don't. Yeah, so I don't. No, I won't partake in that, but just to go, just to cross off a bucket list.
No, I'm totally think that's awesome. In fact, after we get off the air, if you tell me some dates, I think we should try to get some press passes for you there.
Yeah, it'd be pretty dope.
But anyway, I like this. I like the international schedule. Again, I really do wish, and I will, again, like I say, I do like that it's week 1. So these teams don't have any travel things they're used to. I just really wish that Green Bay, Green Bay and Philadelphia and the Patriots and the Jags, even though I think the Patriots are going to be terrible, so it don't really matter. And then the New York and Panthers, even though I think the Panthers and the Giants are going to, sorry, Munich, you get a shitty game. Like, I don't think there's any chance that game's any good. But I just wish that they would only keep them as NFC versus AFC. I just don't want Green Bay, Philadelphia coming down to that could be the game that decides everything for them.
Again, the Panthers have made improvements in the offseason. They improved their offensive line.
I agree.
They got a speedy receiver in the draft. We'll see what happens.
Like
they have an extensive backfield of running backs this offseason. They have Rashad Penny. They have UT's own Jonathan Brooks. They have Chupa
Not
Hubbard.
all of them are staying on that team, though, right? In fact, it wouldn't shock me if we see, like, and maybe it's just me rooting and hoping. I still would love to see Rashad Penny on the Cowboys, and I don't think there's any way he survives. I think he's a body right now to see what happens. They're going to put it all on Jonathan Brooks. They're just waiting to see if his knee is ready.
Yeah. The Panthers are still a year or two away, but I think I like what they've done so far in upgrading the offensive line. So we'll see. Hey, if Bryce Young makes a big step in year 2 with a very good offensive-minded head coach and Dave Canales, we'll see.
I still think they're going to be pretty bad this year, though.
Yeah. And if they get the 5 wins, I'll have some hope, especially if they lose 5 of those games in big shootout losses.
Yeah.
I'll be okay with it.
All right. Is there anything else you want to wrap up and talk about? As I think we're kind of.
Who are your toughest schedules?
Oh yeah, give me your first one. Well, I already told you mine. My first one, I totally agree because I had this. I think I had the Niners at 3rd. Hang on, let me give a note. I think Buffalo, and it's not necessarily who they're playing. It's just when they're playing that they kind of get those. They get those really like dense 4 and 5 weeks to where. Well, I mean, what has Buffalo done over the last few years? They tend to be 5-5 and all that. And I don't think the end of this schedule last year or this year helps them as much as I think last year's end of schedule did to get them into the playoffs.
Oh, I agree. The Bills are my number 3. And to me, like, I have several reasons. 1, 9 road games in a 17-game season. You kind of want to have 9 home games.
Yeah, and Dallas, by the way, that's one of the positives of Dallas. And it did fit. And I'm saying this, and I know they lost at home in the playoffs. And they have now, in fact, lost 2 in a row at home in the playoffs, being, San Francisco a couple years ago and Green Bay this past year. But it did feel like in the regular season, Dallas finally – the home field advantage was actually, I mean, up into that Green Bay loss, they'd won like 18 in a row or some crazy number at home.
16,
so anyway, 16 at home. Yeah. And you're right. And you pointed that out way back when the 17 game started a couple years ago, that 9-8 is going to decide playoffs, and it has, and it will forever. And I don't have a problem with that. That's kind of why I'll admit, as a personal fan, if you give me 2 bye weeks, I don't hate 18 games. As long as you have 2 bye weeks, you eliminate preseason to maybe 1 game, 18 games, 2 bye weeks. But it has been fun having an uneven because it matters so much with home field advantage.
I couldn't agree more, man. I couldn't agree more. So for the Bills, you're number 1, my number 3. I picked the Bills because they have a tough early schedule and a tough late schedule. In the early schedule, they play the Dolphins, Jets, Ravens, and Texans. Toward the end of the year, Niners, Rams, and Lions.
And that, to me, is going to be the toughest part. The beginning's tough. But again, as you said, when you're in the beginning, there's a lot of questions. There's going to be some teams that, we think are good that aren't going to be good. We think that are going to be bad that aren't going to be bad. But when you look at that, as I said, last year they were able to F around a little bit, and they figured it out into the playoff at the end of the season. I don't think you can do that this year. I mean, first off, I mean, you've got 3 division games, and then you've got the Niners, as you talked about. And I'm telling you, folks, if Matthew Stafford is healthy, and I know they're going to miss Aaron Donald, but if Matthew Stafford is healthy, the Rams are still a playoff team.
Yeah, they could very well end up being 10-7. They figured out the running game last season, and they upgraded their offensive line. I think they got that Jonah Jackson guy from the Detroit Lions, so they're gonna be good. They're gonna miss Aaron Donald. They might have a jersey retirement ceremony for him at some point this season. I wouldn't know, but yeah. My number one was the 49ers.
And I have no problem with that, because they every time they're playing somebody, it feels like it's coming off bye week. And also, to be honest, they're a lot like Dallas, where you feel like they're kind of at that year where it's, okay, it's time to show us something. It's time to show us that Shanahan and that doesn't even necessarily mean they need to win a Super Bowl, but it just feels like the season ends the same way for them. They start really hot. They're the greatest team, and then they struggle in the playoffs after having a lead. Something has got to change on that, because unfortunately for them and Shanahan, they're not like Jerry Jones. I don't think San Francisco sits and waits another year if they don't make some difference this year.
Which sucks, because they've been so successful the last 7-8 years, and they're going to have to do something, because they're plateauing and they need to win a Super Bowl, or they just tank. I mean, really, at this point, like, they don't pay Ayuk, they don't pay Debo, they don't pay anybody. Maybe Purdy, just because you have a quarterback that's capable, but yeah.
So where else? Who else do you have in the top 5?
I got Browns, only because percentage-wise, they're playing the toughest schedule from the
and everybody in the AFC North has a tough schedule, because they're all really good. Let's be honest with that. They're all really, really good, and just because they're all in the same division, they all pretty much have the same shit they have to go through.
But the funny thing is, that sort of relates to the NFC East, because those two divisions are playing each other this season.
Mm-hmm.
The Giants are the one that got screwed over the most. They have the number 6 toughest schedule.
Yeah.
And the Commanders have the 16th toughest schedule. The Cowboys have the 12th, and then the Eagles have the 21st. So the Eagles have benefited from all of this, which is hilarious to me.
Because they're the second place team. Now, it's not as impactful as it used to be. There used to be a time, and there's a reason why between 2000 and now, or 2003, you haven't seen the NFC East have back-to-back winners. Part of it was because for part of that schedule, the difference between your first place team and your second place team schedule-wise was vastly different. We're talking about, if you won a division, you had a top 5 toughest schedule. If you finished second in the division, depending on who you played, you'd have the worst schedule. It's not quite varies as much now, because we're more locked into, like this year, AFC Dallas plays the AFC North, and then they play that one that you now play one AFC team that's not in that division, that's still in, that's important, but not quite important. But for the NFC East, it is such a widely ranged of those teams. And so Philadelphia got the benefit of the second place schedule, even though they're a first place quality team.
Exactly.
We think, at least.
Yeah, we think, yeah. But yeah, rounding out my top 5 were, like you said, the Bills, Ravens, for the same reason as kind of like the Bills, where they have 9 road games. Chiefs, Cowboys, Bengals, Browns, Texans, all on the road. Daunting task. And then I threw in a wild card. I threw in the Patriots.
I had no problem with that. I threw Minnesota. Minnesota was my 5th.
Which kind of sucks, because Minnesota was, I think, a 3rd place team. Patriots were a last place team. And like for the Patriots, they're playing the Bengals, the 49ers, the Texans, Jets, Bills, Dolphins, and both like the Chargers and the Rams.
Yep.
To me, that's just a pretty tough schedule for a team that didn't really do well last season.
And for me, the Vikings, I see them starting out the year 1-0. They'll beat the Giants, but then listen to this: Niners, Texans, Packers, Jets, Lions, Rams, and then the Colts. November 3rd. Again, we're all saying this right now. Injuries, upsets. But when you look at the schedule, just looking on paper, I see a win in September 8th, and I don't see another win till November 3rd. And that's only if Anthony Richardson and the Colts offense has not advanced, because I kind of feel like they're this year's Texans and Detroit. I think the Colts make the biggest step and surprise everybody. So the point is the Vikings, even if they hit right on their quarterback and Sam Darnold has a career year, I think the schedule is just really stacked against them early. Now, if they can survive that and be around 4 and 5, the back end of the schedule kind of changes. You get the Cardinals. We still don't know what the Falcons are going to be. I still think Seahawks take a very big step back. In fact, Seahawks might be the team that take the biggest step back for me in the NFL. But man, the Vikings, I don't see they feel like a 4-13 season, which wouldn't be a bad thing. They get a new quarterback.
Well, I mean, they drafted a new quarterback,
and we'll see.
They drafted him in the first round. He's going to get as many opportunities as he needs.
Do you go with Sam Darnold to start and then he's in, or do you start?
Yep, you start with Sam Darnold.
I still think Sam Darnold. I don't think he's Josh Rosen. Look, Josh Rosen, right or wrong, just never got he got overvaluated. But I also think, kind of like David Carr, you put him on a team that had no offensive line and he just died. I don't think Sam Darnold's quite there yet. I think you can still salvage Sam Darnold. Now, what will happen for Minnesota, because this always happens for Minnesota, he will play just good enough to where he keeps starting and you get no advancement in your – watch that. Watch them be 4 and 5 after a tough schedule because Sam Darnold is playing just good enough, and see what they do there, because that would be a really tough decision.
Panther fans were very excited about Sam Darnold 2 years ago when they started 3-0. And then they had him toward the end of the season, and they almost won the division.
Yep.
So, and then, last year was with the 49ers. He's still capable. He's still young. He's under 30. He should at least get this year to start to see what talent. It's more like a talent evaluation year for the Vikings. Think about it long term. You have a pretty solid head coach. You have a really good defensive coordinator. You have pieces. Just play it out. Let's see what happens. They might be better than what people think.
If I was Minnesota, I would think about trading Jefferson at the trade deadline unless you're in the playoffs. And there's nothing against him. But we are realizing now, and I think Jefferson could be a Hall of Fame receiver, but we're realizing now you can find – it's like running back. Wide receivers is about to become like running backs where you can find guys. You don't have to draft them number 1. You can find guys in the 3rd round. You can find a Miles Austin. You can find a guy who's good but just never got the choice. You don't have to draft him early. And I said that about CeeDee Lamb. Like, I love CeeDee Lamb. I'm a pass guy. I love a passing offense. I love CeeDee Lamb leading the league in receptions and yards and all that. But how many yards do you need to win a division? After that, it's just window dressing. So if Dallas had a great package, of course, they'd probably trade him for a 5th rounder. But if they traded CeeDee Lamb for a great package of picks, I would have no problem with that.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you get more in return.
Exactly. And that's the big thing. And that's where I still contend the Amari Cooper trade was right. They just didn't allow themselves time to really get a good haul. They should have gotten more from that. But yeah, so anyway, are we about done?
I think so, man.
Dude, 2.5. This is the longest show we've had. We started at 6. We're finishing at 8:37. Again, we want to remind everybody each and every week we're here talking football, whether it be and baseball. We could always put out socials for the day. I have no clue what that means. We're talking work stuff in the middle. I got a Discord message. Again, I want to remind everybody that all of our shows that are not in season, we're going to start putting up on Patreon first. Not happy hours. They'll always be live on YouTube. But go to our Patreon, OutDrank The Coverage. You can watch the top 5 rivals show, the number 3 San Francisco 49ers. We talked 2 hours on that show, by the way. We had a blast doing that one. You can go to our YouTube channel and see our Green Bay one, the number 4. Go to youtube.com/@L4Media Company. You can also email the show at ODTCshow@gmail.com. Again, we want to thank Manscape. 20% off your order. All you have to do is type in ODTC in the promo code, and you get free shipping. Are you going to be here? So next week we go back to baseball. We have a baseball happy hour. I think that's supposed to be our first look back in baseball, the 1994 MLB strike. We'll have to talk to our baseball host, Ryan Fox, and let us know where we're at on that. But for the most part, intern Noah's wrap things up. I like the NFL schedule this year. It's going to be fun. I think we get great games every night. Not necessarily every week, but Thursday Night Football has some really great games where I think this year we will actually be tuning into them.
I think it'll be football for us from Thursday to Monday night, and I can't wait, and I think it's going to be entertaining.
Yes, sir. All right, that's going to do it for this week. He's intern Noe. I'm Terry Bennett, and we do appreciate everybody joining us for the happy hour.